Don't let it get into your head, Jim.
Hi, good morning. We are going back into our work session for January 10th, 2019. We started at 10, we went into executive session, we have closed executive session, which was for legal advice regarding hunting licenses, now have come back into open session. So if we could, we had held off on the pledge till the beginning of this, so if we could first stand, say the pledge. Jim, since you're standing, could you start us?
Yes, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Jerry.
So our first item is, safety advisory, and the EPCAL, walking trail. So if we could have, Dan McCormick, as our town attorney, to come up, as well as Chief Hagemiller. And we also have Jerry Halpern and Chris Witt here, if you wanted to both come up.
Good, how are you?
Dear.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning, guys.
I'm just gonna have both of you, you're both on the Wildlife Management Advisory Committee?
Yes, ma'am.
Obviously, you have this in case you need as a reference.
I can give it to you.
So part of the reason that we have this on the agenda is because we have had bow hunting, season, which has just closed, and we've gone into the, shotgun hunting, deer program, which is at EPCAL from January 7th, to January 31st. One of the, areas of concern that we have is because prior to this is, I think, our 7th or 8th, how many years? Ninth year, that we've had hunting over there, shotgun season. But this is the first year that we've had the full EPCAL trail, completed, during that season, so there is some concern of how it's being posted to let the community know that they cannot, go on the property during that time of year. So we just wanna go over a couple of the things that we have put in place. We have, notified the, newspapers, it is on our website, it's been placed on our social media, but we feel that we need to keep continuing to notify the public, that it is closed at this time, for safety reasons during this season. So I just wanna go over a couple items that we have put in place, to close the trail and to notify people. So do you gentlemen wanna address that, or would you like, us to address it? I know you guys have been out there, and there's police barricades at all of the entrances to the trail. There, it has been posted with signs that it is, shotgun season, and people are not to go on the trail there. I know that there has been a few people that have wandered on there, and has brought this issue, up as a concern, and there's been some, a way that we can address it. One of it is to, reiterate it here, that the trail is closed to the 31st of January. Nobody is allowed onto that trail for public use. There is a fine associated with going on the trail.
Trespass is in the town code, it's also a, criminal violation
$500 fine.
in the town code.
Right.
Right.
So
I think
And
that's,
30 days in
And
jail.
30 days.
right, that's been I think as every year, we've had that, we've always had that communication, we posted it every year. I believe, one of the issues that we've had this year is we did have someone, removing the signs, during the archery season, it's which the state calls it, the archery season. So someone was removing those signs, we were going up there, and so we did our best to replicate those signs, but we also tried to make sure budgetary, with highway and making sure that we weren't overtaxing that. Dan informed me yesterday that he went up there, which we would have been happy to go at any time. We would rather not just see, we're the committee, so if you guys have empowered us to do that, we would like to do that. So going forward, instead of kind of going out on your own or with engineering, if you could let us know that that's happening, that would be super duper, we would think, because that's what we're here for.
Okay.
And then, but you said that some of the date stickers weren't right, and we definitely put those up and they were there, so that means that they could just peel the new sticker off. So we need to be aware of that with our law enforcement. We've spoken to, the sector officers, Kitts and Cohen, we know them, they have our personal numbers, and they've been great, about contacting us and letting us know. So they're doing the best they can. We tell the hunters, the archery or shotgun, to call the desk officer instead of jamming up 911, to call, and make sure that they're letting them know, to give
So
them
the
location.
and a letter recently was sent out to the hunters also to be aware that this is the first year that the trail is open, and what if they do see somebody on.
The trail has always been used, we've
Yes.
always seen
Every
people
year.
on the trail. We've always had this issue. This year, because the trail's completed and because there's been so much promotion about the bike trail, what I would say as your wildlife committee, one of your representatives is, there's a brazenness upon those from outside of Riverhead. I think that's the biggest thing that we've witnessed. There's a brazenness of this, that somehow this is for them and no one else can have it. But I can tell you that in all of the people that I've spoken to, and well over 100 from October, the people who give us a majority of the grief and pushback and swearing and those are not from the town of Riverhead. So we actually, as your committee, have somewhat of a solution that we would like to propose. But if you want to hear that now or another time, whatever.
Yeah,
So.
I'd like to hear it.
Where's
Yeah, I agree
yours,
with
man?
Jerry, there's almost like a sense of entitlement, now that the bike trail is complete, and there's a lot of, bike, activist groups that are using it, there's a lot of hikers, and, you know.
Which is the purpose of what the trail was
Yes,
made
it's
for.
awesome, right.
So,
We're-
and-
we're
People are
big
going
fans
into
of
the
it,
woods,
We
so
all
that's
wanna-
not what the purpose of the trail was for.
You let them
Right.
finish.
So, you know, we want the hunters to be able to use it for the 3 months out of the year. It helps manage tick control, which inevitably will be a problem on the bike trail or the recreational trail. But, you know, Jerry and I had a lot of discussion about, you know, we mandate that town residents get stickers to launch their boats, to drive on the beach, to park in town beach parking lots, and
For
we
your
feel
dog.
like, yeah, our taxpayers are paying for this, recreational trail to be used.
It was paid for by the county and
Okay.
state funds.
Okay, my apologies. Well, either way, it's town-owned property that we're given permission for the public to use. And, you know, to maybe minimize some of the out-of-town people, to take advantage of the trail, or take away the, you know, the ability for the taxpayers to have the hunting privilege. Perhaps we can, you know, mandate something where you've gotta have a sticker to park, or register your bike, or use the.
What if it was
property.
what if it wasn't a paid sticker? What if it, you know, saltwater fishing requires a free registration so that they know, the DC officer knows how many people are out there. It would be a possibility just to have them to just register, to say, hey, I'm there, and that way when they register, just like the hunters, they get to do this for free, but then they get a list of the rules. And in those lists of the rules, to ride on the bike path, they would know, and again, obviously, it's never gonna be 100%, but then in there would be a thing that just said, hey, these are, you know, sun up to sundown, these are the same, no? You know,
No.
we're.
I
no,
disagree.
is that
Just
your,
because
is that everyone's, or is that just your?
that's my opinion,
Okay.
because the trail was paid for by the county and the state, it's supposed to be a free recreation trail, and it's supposed to be open to the public. So if somebody comes at 4:30 in the afternoon and the recreation department is closed, and there's no way for them to get a sticker, and they're here visiting for the week, or what have you, then they're, and they could put a sticker on the car and have 4 people in there that are from out of town that have never read
Well,
the advisement.
saltwater fishing is the same way. You're not fined if you don't have your saltwater fishing, free sticker. And it's not something, if you go down and you fish and you have it, you're not in trouble. It just helps to understand who is there. I'm not saying.
I think, you know, if we pull back a little bit, I think really the issue is really this, and when it's bow, what's the other one called?
Archery.
Archery season, you know, people are allowed to use the path, so we're really talking several weeks here right, 3 weeks in the month of January. You know, and when the weather is really cold, I don't know that it's as much of an issue.
It is.
But it's also very warm right now, so I think we need to address the timeframe that we're actually talking about in a meaningful way. So I think that, you know, we do have the fund, you were able to put up one of the big flashing, one of the signs, were you able to get any from the, I know we had ordered a couple more, they're not in yet, but,
Maybe yesterday one came in.
okay.
Maybe.
So we have, you know, how you have the big road closure sign, so we've put that up there also. I think that we can maybe post a few more signs if you see any more areas that they need to be posted. I also think it's just educating the public that this is something going on in EPCAL at this time of year, and it is closed.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that maybe we can put a few more, somebody out there, if we know the specific time, is there any more time that you feel that might be more useful for a police officer or a police car to be there to deter people from walking on the path, either earlier in the morning or later in the
I
afternoon?
don't know if there's a time. I think, if the hunters know that if they drive on the bike path, that they're going to be fined. And I think if they, you know, if you find someone, if you find a bicyclist, if you find a walker, you find 5 people, it's gonna get to every group on Long Island, and they're gonna know.
That
And
was
so-
the recommendation in my email,
Yeah.
is that you guys have been great so far in keeping the town advised and keeping our town attorney advised as to what's happening on there. And if you could make a call to the desk officer, if you see somebody on the trail, and the police gets right out there and writes them a ticket, the word will get out and people will stop doing it, because they are just completely ignoring the signs and completely ignoring the warnings and, you know, lying to representatives of the town, saying, oh, they thought it was, you know, bow hunting season, not shotgun season, when it's actually posted right there, and they see the signs, they've admitted to seeing the signs,
And the officers
so-
are doing a great job. You know, we've spoken to them, and they're doing, you know, it's a big, it's a huge property, so it's very.
It is very good, and I think, and like I said, I think is that we need to keep this all month long, the education needs to continue to remind people to stay off the trail, until the 31st.
Right, one other suggestion I'd like to make too going forward, I mean, this isn't immediate, but, perhaps maybe a couple larger, more permanent signs that are installed by like building and grounds with metal posts that, are, they're year round, and perhaps like, you know, we can have an area that will put up a sticker way in advance that has, you know, the exact dates, but
So
this way,
people
the
can plan
walkers
accordingly.
that use the trail, you know, throughout the course of the year,
know.
will
They
know
know.
that there is a season for hunting and it will close, you know. In Rocky Point, there's a large piece of land that a lot of bikers and outdoor walkers use, and they all know that that gets closed, and that's been going on for 20 years without a problem.
Right.
So I think that if we model some of the things that we do, I think we could be more proficient with
Okay.
I
those
also
things
think
too.
it's effective when they arrive there and there's some sort of change, like you have the barricade across. I mean, I think sometimes if you have a sign there all year, maybe people start to tune it out.
100%.
Whereas you show up to walk and you've got barricades across and suddenly you think, oh, something different is going on
There,
here.
yeah, there's so many.
And let me just ask you, Chief, if we can have you're having the sector car maybe swing by there more often or survey it
No problem.
on more of a regular basis, and then I totally agree, I think we need to enforce the fine.
One of the things is there's so many access points that are even off of town property.
Right.
And so I think, like you said, you know, educating, advocating, but I think also is not allowing fear to dictate everybody playing well in the sandbox together. You know, we can't allow people who are breaking the law to push out those that we feel like are doing this. And
Oh, I
think-
agree.
Well,
think
having
that's
said that, Jerry, past 2 years, I've been the liaison to the Wildlife Committee, and in working with you guys have played by the book perfectly. Your whole group, done a great job. So the people know, you're the ones who actually brought this to our attention, that the people were on the trail. We didn't have people going on the trail and complaining that they couldn't use it. We had you as being up there, doing what you're supposed to be doing by the book, legally, and people trespassing in front of you when you're out there hunting. So we appreciate that you brought that forward. Your group has been a steadfast group within the town. And keep in mind, there's a purpose to this. The purpose to this is, and Chris touched on it, with getting rid of the ticks, thinning the herd. Some of these deer are pretty scrawny up there, and it's, you know, you're kinda doing a public service, if you will, to thin the herd out up there, and we appreciate what you're doing. Animal lovers are gonna disagree with that, and that's their right, but, in reality, it is what it is. I appreciate what you're doing, how you're doing it, and, I wish you to continue on. I'm not looking to shut down anything, for the sake of some people who refuse to abide by the law. The onus is on them. In my opinion, the town has done everything in its power to make this known to the public via signs, via media, via whatever. So if you walk past a 4x8 sign that says it's closed and it's hunting season, shame on you.
I think every good hunter is a conservationist at first, so I love and respect every animal that's in the woods. And the same thing, I believe that even if a hunter or, you know, a hunter was doing something wrong, we would eject them from our program. You know, I've spoken to the sector's officers and said, if you find a hunter that's driving on that trail, find them. You know, don't you know, and let us know so they can be removed from our program. We feel the same way. We don't think that anyone, you know, and we've dealt with that, and we've had to speak to some of our hunters who've even stepped a little sideways and said, hey, you know, you'll be done, you know,
Right.
so we.
Well, not only that, but I think it's important to point out that we've actually made arrests up there for poachers that I think was instituted by you guys surveilling the property and safeguarding the property, so, I mean, so we've actually caught
Yeah,
illegals up there.
Yeah, if you were to ever in the future, and this is our record, if you were to remove this program from town people, it will be flooded with, people poaching. It was before this program was in.
You're right.
And then you have people, we did just work with DEC, a person was apprehended hunting at night, and so it's always, conservation is way better than no conservation, so.
I think we coexisted for the 9 years,
Yeah.
you know, with the trail and everything else, and I think this is a good dialogue. I do like your idea that it is posted up there so people are well aware, you know, on an ongoing basis that happens during this time of year, and they can plan and they're aware of it. It's not, you know, showing up there in their joggers and their sneakers and going, well,
Correct.
you know, I didn't even know about this, so I'm just gonna, you know, kinda get this done and I
Yeah,
won't be
right.
back again. So I think that may help a little bit. I think having the committee, and keep talking through the committee to, you know, tweak what we need to have. And I think, you know, when there's issues that come up, we need to address them, you know, quickly.
You
And
let
I
us
think
know.
that's with the, you know, with the chief putting, you know, getting together, putting the signs up, putting the other signs up,
Yeah, and-
coming and being proactive here. I think that's really what,
My
you know.
question is, and Laura touched on it, do you think, now you said no, but do you think that because January has been unusually warm, that there's more than
Monday,
normally would guess?
Monday, one of the people walking on the trail was intersected with myself. It was 21 degrees outside, and they were elderly, and they said to me, no, we'll walk in 11-degree weather. I think people just have their patterns, and I think yes, there's less, but I do believe there's still people who just, you know, and they walk past 3 police barricades, and, you know, so I do believe that there are people, I do believe it's
That's
less, but,
I also think though, with the completion of the bike trail and how well it was done,
yeah.
there are more bike enthusiasts that are there that
Right.
have on-road type bicycles that couldn't use it for the entire loop, now that are,
Right.
you know, utilizing it more. And I actually ran into a couple bikers too that, you know, were so happy and they're thrilled with the way that it came out, so. And in the interest of safety, I think that, the permanent signs affixed in a few areas that are big, that we could put stickers on, are good. But I still think that the police barricades and the
Oh,
individual
absolutely, yeah.
signs,
Right.
we still have to do a good job of putting them up and taking them down, so.
Absolutely.
Anything you want us to do, we'll try to do our best of, you know, I only work 1 day a week, I'm a preacher, so I can do.
1 hour a week, 2
Work
hours
less
a week.
than you guys,
And he
so.
walks his dog on the trail, but not during the month of January, right? So the Alternative Transportation Committee also, being aware of this, has sent out the warning notices and notifications to the local bike clubs, like Rocky Point Bike Club and other clubs, which I think is important. So we need to also put out the notice and put a big red sign on the town webpage come out, you know, in December that says the trail's closed from January for the month of January. I think that, you know, we could do a better job with the website also, and then sending out warning notices to all the local bike clubs on Long Island.
All right, so I think, thank you very much.
Okay.
Guys
I
are the
think,
best.
Chief, you'll send a couple extra
All right.
patrols out there, and when we get the other sign, put the sign up on the other side, just so people know, and if we need more signs.
Still waiting on the state for their signs.
Okay, very good.
And thank you for
Thanks so
being
much.
good stewards of the land and for
Thanks,
helping us with our deer population, because I'd rather them be killed in the woods rather than on the hood of somebody's car.
Thank you,
Thank
Chris.
you.
Thanks.
See my car?
Chief, you're here still.
Right.
Yeah, we're doing the,
Run,
next,
but you can't away.
yeah,
Run, but
next
you
up
can't
is
hide.
the monthly
That's
public
Naomi,
safety
appreciate
update.
What is this now?
This is the,
Oh, the
chief coming in
monthly.
for the monthly?
There we go. Pretty much status quo. Things are good. You can see, basically calls received, a little down for the whole year, actually, not by much. Criminal incidents are pretty steady where they were. And the call volume and everything is pretty much the way it was when I worked there.
Right.
In terms of what sector is the busier sector, what time frame is the busiest time frame, so on. Correct. I know I sent you a lot of paperwork. So you have the monthly that will be submitted to Diane, that was the first attachment.
Extra copies, I'm sorry.
I did not bring.
I'll print them.
Yeah, we can print them.
But, the next attachment was by sector, and then by tour, sector and tour were the next 3 attachments to that, so you have all that.
Yeah, and thank you for doing them by sector.
No problem. The, arrest, we asked for that by sector, so that's that. I don't know if you got the color copy on the email, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
A lot to look at, but I think if you just focus on the graph there, or the chart, I should say, not the graph. The kind of lays it out a little better than looking at that multicolored graph at the bottom, so, this one here, right, this one. And that might change month to month, because it's only listing the types of arrests that we had, so if you have a different arrest.
Depends on
it's
season,
gonna-
depends on.
Right, it's gonna
What
come up.
is UPN?
Unlawful possession of marijuana.
Okay.
Which is probably go away.
I'll spell that, I don't know, well, I'll probably talk about
That's
it.
okay, I just was wondering.
Which may be going away.
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause I had to figure out EWOC,
Okay,
endangering the welfare of a child.
okay.
That didn't pop right out at me,
Yeah.
so. The next one was the Narcan, and that's the police Narcan uses, that's this one here.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. So this is, it says Riverhead Volunteer Ambulance calls Alcohol Drug Emergency Response. So this is this,
That's from the ambulance.
so this is from the ambulance.
Right,
So this
correct.
is, like, for this one, so you have the substance abuse, then you have substance abuse, overdose Narcan use, 2,
Correct.
right? So there was only one, there was 2 in December. Is that administered by the police or an
So if you
ambulance or
look,
all total in the
yeah,
town?
so if you look at our sheet, this is what we know about.
Which sheet is that one?
That's, yeah, it's the one right before that.
Okay,
There you
this
go.
one, the,
Right.
okay.
So that's what we're tracking and what we know about.
So
So
this-
that'll even track EMS use, fire use, civilian use, if we know about it.
Okay, so then, this is where I'm getting, so this one, December 2018, non-fatal, fatal,
Correct.
right? So this is overdoses?
Correct, so you had 6 overdoses where Narcan was administered.
So this is, but, okay, they have like total for the month is, this is 7.
7,
So
right.
Narcan was administered 7 times?
Well, I'm looking at cases here, so if you look at the cases down here,
Okay, so like this
So
one, so
this-
this was just 2 doses, 1 person?
correct.
Gotcha, okay. So you got 6 cases that it was administered by,
That we know about where it was a
That
overdose.
somebody showed up.
Right, it was an overdose and Narcan was administered,
okay, so we just need to label this. So this is O-Day Narcan administered.
correct.
Okay. And then fatal is this the result of these cases, or these are separate?
Separate.
Separate, so, okay,
Yeah.
so then we had, so then this is in 2018, we had,
December 2018, you have
December,
two-
we had four, so we had 7, it was administered 7 times and 4 deaths.
You had 2 fatalities,
2 fatalities,
Right.
okay.
and you had administered whatever the rate is
Okay,
there.
so you know what we need to do is just number these here, like just
Okay.
put the numbers on here,
Mhm.
and then number them here. So 2 fatalities and 6 administers, okay.
Yep. Now, you know, it's down, you might assume that that's, an opioid overdose,
Mhm.
not necessarily.
It's just Narcan
Right.
administration, that there was a cause for it to be
Right.
administered.
Right, we
There-
talked about this at the last
Right, they died,
time you were
for
here.
some reason, the ME will tell us why later on.
Okay, and then do we get the ME's report from
We do.
Riverhead for 18?
I get that annually.
Okay, so
I
just
have
share
the
that,
receipt,
yeah,
yep.
just when you get that,
Have the
you'll
receipt,
share
yeah.
that with us, okay.
And as I say, that came from the ambulance.
And are we like, as far as tracking, I know one of the questions that we had said how other towns are tracking. So is this information that the way they track in other towns to have useful data across the board, or?
I don't know that, I know we're also tracking it by mapping it
Okay,
with the county, so we've, joined onto that program.
okay,
So whenever we have one of these overdoses, it goes right onto the map, and then you're actually able to see if it's just some kind of hot spot area
Okay.
where this is happening, and maybe it's the same dealer or something like that.
okay,
And gives us an advantage as far as pursuing, charges against that person.
okay.
But we did talk last time, I think, about seeing what other towns do, cause we were talking about, I think you had said it's challenging to track it, so we,
I know that Southampton has
can-
their task force, I'm not sure how they track it, but I will check that.
that'd be great if you can let
Okay.
us know that next time, thank you.
Are the Nike on our cans, are they similar to like the Dewey kits and stuff like that, numbered and all that?
Oh, we track ours, the ones that
Oh,
go
we
out
track
there?
ours.
Yes, ours.
But we can't,
I
Right,
don't know
right,
how
it's-
they get, yeah.
But the general public can have them.
Right.
And
Yeah, right.
administer them, so.
exactly right.
And the only way we know that is if we're told that.
Right.
I mean, it might have happened, we don't know about it, but if we know about it, we put it in the report, we search on that and we find it,
And,
so.
and just out of curiosity, I know sometimes they track by age. What kind of, what
Yeah, on
population
the-
are we looking at here?
It's usually, I think for the last few years, it's been like older, so I'm gonna say 40s has been the age. I wanna say last year was 49, but maybe it was 39,
Okay,
but it's up there, it surprised me too
It's
when I
surprisingly how
saw it.
high, I mean, you get
Right,
sixties sometimes,
Right, exactly,
yeah.
and we just had one that was, I think, in the eighties that died of a drug overdose,
Now,
so.
just back to the Narcan, I went to an event in town where it was a training and
Right,
they gave
and
us.
they give out.
They gave it out, has there been a training within the town workers for Riverhead?
For regular
For the
employees,
employees.
I mean, the police have been trained, obviously,
But
not
all
that I
the
know of.
employees, seems like we should have that
We
for
could
the
look,
town.
I can look into that.
Who has offered it? It has been offered in the town,
Department of Health.
Department of Health has
Right.
offered in the town?
It was at the high school, I went to it at the high school, I think.
Kiwanis Club does it,
Yeah, but I think it comes through Department of Health, right?
Yeah. cause we took it a few years ago.
Maybe we should, just maybe try and do one of them and try and, I mean, everybody always targets the population that is younger,
Right.
for the 20-year-old population, but maybe we should, do something where we target an older population to teach them.
Talk to Felicia, I bet they put it together through Catholic.
Yeah.
I do think it would be good to do for the municipality workers.
For employees.
For the
Yeah, well,
employees.
Right.
We had like the tick training that was like 3 hours that we took the employees away from their desks to do the trick training. I think it would be more productive to actually do a film of it, of the training, and then let the town workers watch it at their leisure.
I think the training that we did for the, tick training was very helpful, the feedback that we got
Was.
for the employees it was really, they really, felt that it was very helpful, especially the people that are out, in areas that they're prone to,
I love
To
the little
the
twitches I
ticks.
got.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
don't see pulling 300 workers away from their desks
I don't
to
think you
do
pull
this
them all at once,
training.
I think we figure out some sort of schedule, and I think anytime you do some sort of training for your employees, especially something that, this could be a life or death situation, I think it's important.
I'll check out Department of Health. I would say, as far as tracking, I
Very
would say
good.
most other towns are probably doing by the ME's report,
Mm.
I would think, except for maybe
I think
Southampton.
Okay.
Right.
I think this is
No, I
very
think
helpful,
about
I think this is a great job. The only one thing that I would, like to add on it, and I think that's why these meetings are good, is maybe if we can start tracking, an age.
Age,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
As I said, that comes out on the county report, but we'll add it to that report.
So how many deaths were there last year from
No,
overdose?
just last month.
Last month there were 2. The year
Riverhead.
before that, I think we were at 6 or 7, I don't think it was.
For the
For the year.
For the year, correct.
But now, so it looks like it's
And
increasing
I've just
with
heard
2 in
that-
a month.
Yeah, but I just heard it's on the down.
But that, we'd like to know
Right.
that it's on the
Yeah, I know.
downswing in our town.
For sure.
I mean, I think that's the
For
the
sure.
point, I mean, even if other towns are going
Right.
down, we wanna make sure that we're following suit with that. But very good, thank you very much for that.
Thank you for these detailed
Um,
reports.
I have a few questions, just I know on the last page that you had put statistics for the
Right.
year. The numbers seem to be pretty consistent with
Pretty
everything, so very
consistent.
good, robbery is down.
Actually, violent
which is
crime
good.
is down 13%,
Very
which is good, and I think overall we're down, however, that burglary number, I want you to disregard at this point.
Yeah, what is
because
that?
I don't know, I think she might have copied the wrong number, so.
Okay, will you double check on
Right.
that, I was wondering about
I
that,
was supposed to say, I guess.
yeah.
It's either that or sometimes it's how the computer's counting it. There's 2 sides to our computer, it's an RMS side and a CAD side, so sometimes that gets jumbled.
Alright, so maybe we can tweak that just so that
Yeah.
we can stay consistently, going through that. The other thing is, I know that you had sent me about, for the downtown sector,
Sectors.
about moving, did you wanna just talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
It's about, just changing exactly where 607 and 608 with the addition of the sector, the chief had just talked about,
Right.
changing the parameters a little bit.
So in our original proposal, I think it was a little shorter east to west, I'm gonna say. I don't think the northern boundary changed, or the southern boundary is the river, so it's, that hasn't changed. But actually in 608, the new 608, we're going out to Marcy Avenue on the west instead of Sweezy was beforehand.
So you're going down to Tom's,
Right,
to
so we're-
Tom's Country, okay.
So those foot patrols are gonna go from Marcy Avenue all the way down to where on Main Street?
Roanoke, Peconic? So
That's not too bad.
That's the west side. Yeah, so if you think about what 607 used to be, it used to be.
That's one
Double.
part.
Right, it was huge, so, I think
And
that
then-
was one of the advantages of going to 2 sectors down there.
And 607 you're
So
increasing a little bit.
607 is now gonna go out to, I wanna capture that complex on the
where CAP is, Social Security, those buildings, I
Mm-hmm.
wanna capture that complex in there, our old, where the historian was, peaceful there.
I don't know where.
Peaceful and
Peaceful one, right.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I wanna capture all that, so we're
Okay.
actually gonna go out to the railroad tracks.
Okay. All right, so right to the railroad tracks on Main then.
Correct.
Let's
Okay.
go over the tracks, cause that's my neighborhood, so.
you're saying 608 is foot patrol, right?
608 and
Foot-
607 are
foot and bike.
Right,
Foot
and bike,
Right,
for
foot
sure.
and bike, really?
And bike, I'm very pleased to have, more foot patrol, more presence.
Very good.
Well, when it's obvious.
And then the one
Walking down there
other
10 o'clock at
question
night.
I have, I know we had talked about the revenue last time for the alarms, I know you removed the $25 thing, but I don't know that
removed
that's
it.
exactly what I was
Yeah,
looking
so
for.
we have just about 900 permits.
Okay,
The problem with that is, it's labor intensive actually to try to capture the way we break down the information. So when there's a bill to decide whether, and which Dan had stated, whether it's the first offense or the second offense, that's all labor intensive, and we have one clerical person to do that.
so is there a program for that, is somebody doing that manually?
Yeah, we are, QED, our records management
Okay.
system does handle that.
And that won't spit out a report for?
It spits out how many permits you have as far as anything
But
else.
then who sends the bill for the permit and for the renewal of
do.
the annual?
We do.
So then that, you have to have a number for the two of them. If you have 900 permits, you have to know
Yes,
how many. I mean, all of them after the first year are 900
But some are just
renewal.
renewals, some aren't new
But the bills
permits.
are different, right? So if it's generating, does it generate the letter for the bill? And it and
Yes,
populate the whole thing?
Yes,
So then it should be able to, whoever,
I'll have to look at the bill
yeah,
and see how it comes out.
just see, because it should, if it is able to just capture that, it should be able to capture the number.
I know the labor intensive part was though, some of these people don't pay right away, so it.
Well, bill collection is never, it's
Right,
always labor intensive.
It gets stretched out, and then they send in a check for $1,400, and all of a sudden now you have to look and figure out where that belongs as far as first bill, second bill, last bill, that kind of thing, so that does take up
How
some
labor
time.
intensive is that?
It is labor intensive.
But I'm saying, are we paying a town employee, or should that be done as part of a bill collection for something? Would that, I mean, are we paying more to have somebody do that than what we're bringing in,
Are you
and
kidding?
does that make sense?
Well, we collected about 100,000.
Yeah, there's a pile of money there.
Right.
So it's
Just take a review of the
Yeah, we'll
process,
do.
if you could.
We'll do.
The other question I have is for the motor vehicle accidents. I know that you're on the, traffic safety committee. For the motor vehicle that happens, do we track, like, how many accidents, where the accidents are occurring? Do we map that out?
As of late, we can now map it.
Okay.
Beforehand, we couldn't, but that's just something that's pretty brand new.
Brand new, okay,
We have LexisNexis that we've signed on through the county with, so
Okay.
that gives us our data
okay.
and our ability to map it, so.
So can we just take can we start to,
Yeah, for sure.
just map that out also, this way we know if there's
It's a problem area.
a problem area, whether it needs to get something that it needs to get
Right.
addressed through planning, or needs to get addressed, so that they know when they're, not to do, if there's a particular issue, that we don't continue it into the future, and that if somebody needs to take care of the issue
For
over there.
sure.
Alright. Alright,
And on that note, I had, seen that there's a resolution in here for Messina, who's the property on Main Road, that they wanted to do the psychological office and then the
Correct.
apartment, and I had asked you for the accidents that had occurred at that location, because that was that was in the letters that we got from the constituents that live in the area, that
Right.
says that there's a lot of
One person
accidents in
baby.
front of that location. So if you could get that information to me, I'd like to have it before we go for a vote on Tuesday. I think we'd all like to have it.
Yes.
agreed.
You have that one problem area down there that always collects the accidents.
But right across from Vineyard
Well, Conrad's
Caterers.
cool,
Right, because that's
Besides for that, I can't say that I know of any
you know what it
other.
is, the people that have written in have said specifically right in that spot,
Right in front of
that
their
there,
houses.
Right.
that there has been several accidents, so we just
Mary-
need the details on
Sure,
that, maybe
Mary
go
just
back.
reminded me this morning, actually. so.
Yep.
How far do you wanna go back? Go back 10
Just say-
years, or,
I don't know, they should pop up.
you have
Right.
10 years?
Main road.
Alright, so why don't we go back 10 years?
The problem with that is gonna be identifying actually where it happened, because we usually go by Cross Street.
There's a cross street right there.
Right there,
There's a cross
okay.
street right there.
Yeah, but that
Gonna-
cross street would be used for one that's down on
Right.
Conklin's Corner, it's not gonna be site-specific to that house.
Is it a
Well, let's
mile?
see how many there are,
I mean, in the-
if there's less than,
You have to do a mile marker,
maybe we
chief.
can.
In the future, I don't know, they can search a mile marker though.
Sure.
In the future, I'm sure there'll be just a GPS coordinate attached
that
to
would
it,
make-
so.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks, chief.
Should be right on the MV 104A, the mile
No,
marker.
that's just
That's
the
it?
new
No,
ones.
that's
Yeah, the new ones,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I
Just
have the
looking
other
for
ones.
I've been out a while, bro.
601
Cause that's the most,
Yes, 601 is just to the west,
East of 605.
east of 607, I always get them mixed up,
It's inclusive.
right, and then
So
the
it's
other one is
east-
605 over here?
605, 605, 601.
601, so this is 601 here, and then this is 605 in here, so this is a breakout of it.
Right, so if you think
So
of
it's bigger.
601 and 605, Roanoke's the dividing line, 601's on the east, 605's on the west.
okay,
58's your northern boundary, Cromer, and 105's your east and west.
The river's the southern.
Right, so with the river, we can't go any further than that.
Although we have.
Oh, we have.
You've gone in the river.
Went to the county the other day too, so.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Next up, we have, Bill Rothar with the information technology update. John, is Bill here?
Yeah, he's in our office.
All right.
Supervisor, make a copy of that map that you have there.
Thanks.
John can make them up, then out of that.
Oh, she's a pain in the ass.
All right, Bill, we're moving on to information technology update. This was a question, that was raised, I don't know, last week, the week before, about Total Technology, had recommended moving into the cloud, and they had, I forget the name of the company that they had
Never Fail.
Never Fail,
Yep.
and then we had asked for, a couple quotes, and one of the quotes was to include one of the larger cloud, sources.
Right, so what Total did was, forwarded information, was sent me information that I forwarded to you guys, and there's actually 5 quotes, including Neverfail, and 3 companies, cause there's different levels that were in between what we were looking for anyway. And, 2 of the companies, Amazon is one, Azure, which is, Microsoft, and another company that, quite frankly, I've never heard of, but that's where they went and got their quotes. I've never heard of Neverfail before this either. So you had received all of that. Neverfail not only is the cheapest, there's setup costs for some of the other ones, and, the response time for some of these bigger companies takes a lot longer than, you know, a company like Neverfail or that second company that may be more responsive than a big company like Amazon, okay? I don't know if you have any other questions on that?
No.
Total Technology is available if you have questions that I can't answer, but
I sent you an email saying move forward. So, and I did speak to the IT department, and they feel very comfortable with Neverfail too, and the response time, as we put in the RFP, that they have to respond within 3 hours of being notified by our IT department, so I'm very happy, and the cloud, service is also part of their contract, so I'm very comfortable with moving forward with Neverfail now. Thank you for getting us the
You're welcome.
information.
Okay, everybody else
Good.
okay with the,
Sounds
moving
good.
forward?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, the
All right.
sooner the better.
Yep, thank you very much.
You did say that in
I
your email.
did say that, sooner the better.
But check with Karen why my laptop.
All
why my
right,
laptop-
now
okay.
we will move on to proposed code amendments to downtown DC one with, Jefferson Murphy.
The folder's getting bigger.
I love it.
This is only 2 of them, it's not everything.
Oh, wait, it's gonna get even bigger.
No,
No, another one's
I'm gonna make it
Oh,
small.
it's definitely gonna get thinner, yes, a lot of that's gonna
The
get.
closer we hone in, the smaller it gets.
copies for them, they're not even,
You're so funny.
they don't get copies, no copies for you.
Just put a pile here. Thank you, sir. He gets one, he's here. I'll distribute that, fine, Jeff, you got it.
That's funny. Thank you.
Thank you. I boiled this down as much as I possibly could, make it as simple as possible. Simple is good.
Cause that's one of your mantras.
What's that?
That's one of your mantras.
It is.
You say it every time. It's true.
So as I said, I did try to boil down to the main points that we're trying to address in the code amendments for the DC one
Before we get started, I know that we have been saying at the, town board meetings that we'd like to have a community, session, to just present some of the rough draft that we have. If everybody is comfortable with that, if everybody's available on January 31st at 6 o'clock, we'd like to hold the
Already on
first
my
one of those,
calendar.
okay? Is everybody okay with that?
I did talk to Karen, and she said I think all of your calendars were open unless you have the first one.
All right, so we will.
What day of the week is that?
We
I'll be
don't
sitting
have
on
time
that
for
side.
personal
I think,
things.
I think it's a Thursday?
Thursday?
Thursday, yep, it's just, it'd be the stakeholders meeting, 6 P M.
Said
If
6
so, then
o'clock.
we'll put out a public notice and let the world know.
Yeah.
Good.
How's everybody on my thing?
More efficient than
More
you
of a
do.
scoping thing, right? More of
On top of it.
a public input type thing.
Alright, so I took all the information in the folders and volumes of materials that we've had on this discussion for the last few months, and I boiled it down to basically 8 bullets, in my memo to you. The first one seems to be the most controversial one, is whether or not we should require transfer development rights anywhere as part of this endeavor. You've heard from Marty Slonowski and his memo to you, the board, saying he's against it. The ARB and landmarks, although we do not have the final opinion letter from them in terms of recommendations, they believe that the primary focus of this effort should be on reducing the building height and not bring in muddy the water, so to speak, with transferring development rights. So.
What was that?
ARB and landmarks. So that's a really key point to all this, because that is to the heart of the cost-benefit analysis. It adds a lot of cost in addition to reducing the height of a building. So you're kind of being hit in both directions when you're reducing the amount of square footage that you're allowed to build today.
No, I get it. I don't know where that even came from, to be honest with you.
It's actually from the, BOA study, recommended TDRs, whether they either come from farmland or from the south side of, Main Street along the river.
Was that downtown, or was that West Main Street? Because I
West-
thought that
West
the
Main
BOA
Street.
study
West
was
Main Street,
West Main
WSS
Street, right,
Sorrow
so
area.
it's not these buildings downtown DC one.
No, it's-
West Main Street.
Right.
It's to increase the
That was
density,
for the
correct.
river corridor.
That was
Yes.
for the river
Yeah.
corridor, not for this area where the TDRs were recommended.
Correct.
Correct.
So, cause you just said that it was, came from
Main
the BOA
Street, but
study.
West Main
But
Street.
TDR, cause you said, where did the TDRs came from, and I said from the BOA was the one who first suggested the TDRs.
Well, I always
Not in
thought
the DC one.
TDRs would be a good idea, but I always thought that it should be redrafted so that the TDR program for downtown would service downtown,
That's another thought.
you know.
Okay, so, there doesn't seem to be a consensus from anybody on the TDRs. The second one is the, obviously, the key part of all this is the building height. Right now, it's 5 stories, 60 feet. Where do we wanna go with this? Is it a 2-story, as of right, and then you go up from there with design guidelines for, you know, limiting or restricting the building setback from the 3rd and 4th, 5th story? Or is it,
Well, what about if we just, let's take the TDR question out of it.
That's
and
done.
Let's take the TDR question
out,
out of it,
right.
so, and I think this has been a point of confusion, it's 2-story as of right, and then 3rd and 4th story. So I think there was never a reduction from 5
Correct.
stories to 2 stories. The board has always discussed from 5 stories to 4 stories.
so we're
You know,
done
there
with
was
the
a question
TDRs?
how to get to the 4-story, but there was never any question that the reduction was from 5 stories to 4 stories.
Correct.
And then it's the build out of the 3rd and 4th story as far as what
Right.
the setback would be in the 3rd and 4th story. But I think that's been a big source of confusion here, and
And
I
it's a
think,
sore subject.
and I think that really needs to be clarified, that this board was never in discussion to reduce the height of the buildings to 2 stories. It was from 5 stories to 4 stories.
Right.
And then, and that's where
And then
it's,
you can
I don't
add-
think has anybody changed off of that at this point from the 5 stories to the 4 stories?
And then the question is, if you are in agreement with it, is it on entirely to the DC1 area, north and south side of Main Street, or is it just the south side of Main Street? I've heard some,
I
Well,
was looking
discussion
at it
back and
for
forth.
just the south side of
Yeah,
Main Street from
that's always
5 to
been my
4.
contention for a decade now, is that the south side is our gold. The south side is what makes Riverhead different than any other downtown area.
I think
So the more that we could reduce the south side, acquire property for ourselves on the south side to create landscapes and sitescapes and park, whatever we need to entice that beauty. So the south side's always been sensitive. The north side, I think, 5 stories is appropriate. I mean, it's okay.
So I am glad you put it out there that we weren't going all the way from 5 stories to 2, because that was a misinformation that was out there. So I'm glad we cleared that up. I personally would like, and I think a lot of people would like to see and I think 4 stories is reasonable, to see the 4 stories on both sides of the main street. I think it would be odd in the DC one to see 4 stories on one side and 5 stories on the other. I don't think it's necessary. We have lots of good areas around in our downtown area to put 5 stories.
Jeff, can you clarify
Actually,
exactly
I-
where DC one is?
I'm concerned about north of Main Street going to 5 stories, because we have a lot of historic structures there, and we just spent $30,000 in the BOA study to incorporate all those homes into the historic district. So I would hate to see all those historic homes knocked down for 5-story buildings, because it really contributes to the character of our downtown if we can get that area cleaned up. So, and now with it being deemed an opportunity zone, I think that you'll see a lot more investment and rehabbing those structures or adding on to those structures.
DC one runs down the north side, doesn't it? Runs down
DC one is
Second Street.
also a historic district also.
I know, but we're talking about 5-story structures to the north of Main Street, which is what Catherine just said.
What I'm talking
Allow
about is
that.
over perhaps by the railroad station or over by the courts. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about tearing down any historic homes. I'm talking about, right there across from the train station.
Okay,
or
so
near
right
the
now-
courts. I'm talking about areas where we already have tall buildings, where I think it fits in. I certainly don't wanna tear down any historic homes.
Okay, good. So I guess when we get to talking to DC3 and DC5 as to what we're proposing there, then it'll be discussed. But, right now, I guess we're talking about DC1.
Right now, we're looking at
So I'm okay
DC1.
with 5 stories on the north side and 4 stories on the south side.
Jeff, can you just?
5, I'm sorry,
I thought
5
you
on
just
north,
Five on the north and 4 on the
But I thought you just
south.
said a minute ago that you wanted I must have misunderstood. I thought you said you didn't want 5 stories on the north side.
I think you were referring more towards Second Street.
Yeah,
North
well,
of-
it's
north
outside
of-
the DC1.
North of the north side
Yeah.
of Main Street, I think that's what I
It's-
picked
So
up from
Jeff,
what
can
you
you
were
just
saying.
clarify what is encompassed in DC one?
I just gave my map.
I know.
Yeah.
Second Street.
But just for, so we're talking.
on the north side, it goes from east to west, it goes from Griffin Avenue to Roanoke, and then from Roanoke all the way over to,
East, past East Avenue.
past Union Avenue to the east.
Yeah, the Union, right,
Union, right,
Australia.
thank you,
Ostrander.
yeah. And then that's on the north side, and then on
The north side
No,
boundary
the
is
north
Second
side,
Street?
Second Street.
Second Street, yeah, cause I'm sorry, it's,
So it's
it's cut
Second,
off.
Second
It's the
Street,
south side of
so it's
Second
the back section of the parking lot, sort of
Right.
where you go through there, and then it comes over, it's a little past Griffin Avenue
to the
over
west.
here, and does it encompass the
Yes.
parking lot
Yes.
there, and then does it
Yes.
go, how far past the parking lot does it go? Does it encompass like where,
Another
or start the Ordo places and,
I think the way I understand
Window
DC1
glass
is
place.
it's all
Yeah.
properties that have frontage
No.
on Main Street
Then go quite
Just
that
Griffin's
far.
parking lot.
Just to Griffin's
and the
parking lot.
parking lots.
correct.
okay, and on the east side it encompasses,
Yes, Austin,
it's the parking lot
Yep.
for the hotel,
Yep.
and just to the end of the hotel there,
on the
So-
south side,
on the south side.
and, yep.
Okay,
Jerry's.
so it's, and
Jerry's,
it's,
right.
right, and it's a little bit before the waterfront where the boardwalk is, then over to Second Avenue. So it's really a small little area
Pretty much a big
that we're talking about, here as far as reducing the height to 4 stories.
So, Jody, you're okay with 5 on the north side?
Yep.
Okay, and then, and then Laura,
I am for 4 stories, on the north and south side in, DC1.
okay,
I think that the look of your main street matters to your town. I've said this before, when you drive down a main street, that's when you get a sense of the whole community, and I think it's much more conducive to retaining our rural and historic character if we keep it to 4 stories, which is actually pretty tall. So that's one I do not like the idea of 5 stories on either side of the main street. I also think that if we do bring in other elements that we've talked about, as enhancing our lighting, our alleyways, making our downtown more walkable, we will be able to bring more investors and we will bring more people, is certainly we're bringing residential in, that's helpful, that's necessary.
That's the
So,
key.
that's
Well,
the
I
key.
also-
So I think we are actually bringing
5
more
versus
people into the
5 and
downtown
4.
area.
I
And we
also-
don't need, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
just
go
one more
ahead,
thing,
yeah.
you don't need big 5 stories, to bring in people. I think there are other ways to bring in people and investors.
And if I can say that with the form-based zoning, and with the setbacks on the 3rd floor and on the 4th floor and on the 5th floor, that you're not even gonna see the 3rd and 4th floor and the 5th floor when you're standing on the sidewalk, cause they're gonna be set back. So, I think that,
That's a good segue into, the next question is.
Can I just ask, I
Sure,
just wanna
I'm sorry.
ask one question.
Sure.
If you have, I know we had talked about, if you go up on 5 stories, the historic buildings that we have there now, that we would like to encourage and to stay there, does that dissuade people from keeping those buildings or knocking them down? Because those buildings, I don't necessarily, will they be structurally sound to support a 5-story building? Or the buildings that we have there now, will that encourage removing the historic buildings to be able to get the full value out on your 5-story building?
I couldn't possibly
look at the
answer that.
Preston House, and you can frame out a steel frame
But
around.
I'm not talking, the Preston House is the hotel you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a brand new building.
No, it's not, the historic house up front was preserved,
But I-
and then they built
She's
it
talking about a
behind it.
foundation setting to go up 5 stories.
Right,
So if you
so
take-
the
let's just
foundation
say
was
you take-
behind
They
the
would not,
historic
they would,
structure.
they're
Let's
more
just
than
say
likely
that-
they would
let's-
tear down
let's-
that building and
Right,
build a
let's
new
just say
building.
the Dark Horse or Tweeds, could either one of those buildings support a 5-story building then?
I'm not
But you know what I'm
construction
saying, this is my only thing,
Oh, I
Are
don't think
we-
so, you mean to add on to it?
Well, this is what I'm saying, are we,
Probably not.
but if
Yeah,
we
they'd
put
probably tear 'em
5
down quickly.
stories in that main section there in DC1, are then we dissuading people to keep those buildings there by putting the 5 stories? Is that what we're looking to achieve?
It hasn't been the case for 20 years, so why would it be the case now?
But what I'm saying, if you're coming in to develop, right, and my full yield is 5 stories, right, and the building I have there, I know can't support the 5 stories, so what are you gonna do? You're gonna take the building
You're gonna have
down?
to rebuild,
You're gonna do the same thing with 4 stories.
Exactly right.
Well,
Not
putting-
necessarily, not
But
if
I
that's your
don't
full
think every-
value for your investors.
I think somebody coming in to buy, let's say a restaurant or a business, let's, the economics of it, we could talk for 3 hours on it. But if I'm coming in to buy a restaurant or to buy because now we have 500 people living on Main Street, I might put a shoe store in, or maybe a clothing store, which are lacking, because now I have people that might wanna shop. But if I'm gonna buy a restaurant, I'm not interested in putting apartments in, I wanna buy a restaurant, and an investor's gonna invest what they wanna do. I don't think somebody's gonna buy Tweeds, which is an historic restaurant, and probably one of the best restaurants around, although I don't eat there, and, and say, I'm gonna tear this down and put a hotel here, it doesn't make sense. To me, it doesn't make sense.
Well, putting a 5-story building, we saw what happened, putting a 5-story building across the street from an historic structure. So it's definitely an issue. I mean, look what happened to the church.
Well, that's
Anyway.
right, that's right, that has to be dealt with.
Anybody that's interested in buying a building downtown, whether it's 4-story zoning or 5-story zonings, they're gonna do the economics to figure out what they have to do in order to get to that 4 stories or 5 stories, and if they don't wanna buy it, they're not gonna buy it. So it's in the hands of the private sector as to how they're going to get to the 4 stories or the 5 stories, not the town board.
And Landmarks probably would have, I mean, look what the hoops that, we couldn't even get a pizza place on Main Street because they had to replicate marble. I can't imagine them even letting them tear down the historic streets,
Well,
like John J. Sullivan,
and
I mean.
plus a lot of the, opportunities for funding, whether it's low-income housing tax credits, or it's workforce housing, or what have you, it requires a review of the State Historic Preservation Office, which is why the Sears building, they said that you could build on top of the Sears building, but you couldn't take the Sears building down. And then the owner decided to take a demo permit and just take the building down. And
Good
he's
for him.
gonna have problems with the State Historic Preservation Office if he ever comes in and tries
Right.
to get some funding,
Oh, I'm sure.
One
because
of
it
the,
was intentional
one of the,
demolition.
one
I
of the
would've done the
question
same
I
thing.
have is
Depends on the funding source.
yeah, it depends on the funding source. My other question is just the physical downtown. We know that on the south sides, it's sort of sloped a little bit down, for many of the things, and on the north side, does it sit higher? So if you have a 5-story building as compared to visually to the south side, are you gonna end up with, even at 5 stories to a 4-story, are you gonna end up with a much higher building? Let's just say, for instance, the Gallo building, right? Because of the slope and the mean there, the back of that building is up at, I mean, it's almost 75 feet. I mean, you drive past the hospital now, that's an 80-story structure going up. That's what we're looking at downtown. Right, it's 5 feet less than, you know,
Okay.
it's
Well,
what-
that's because of the river.
It's 5 feet less than what's going up at the hospital there, and just look at the disparity in height.
But you're not gonna see it
between-
from Main Street, because it's 11 feet grade between Main Street and the river.
No, I'm
So-
just saying.
And we're gonna have the setbacks on the upper floors.
Well, visually, that tower at the hospital is set back a little bit from the other buildings. I'm just saying to get a visual of what we're talking here in height. You know, how
I know,
high it
but
is.
the
The
height-
back of the Gala
I
building
get it.
is 75 feet. Where the hospital sits right now, I believe, is 80 feet up. It's just, take a look at it.
I realize it, but like I said, the sitescape is gonna be wholly different because of the grade. I mean, the 11 feet at McDermott and the 6 feet, it goes down to 6 feet where the grill is, because it kind of, but you're right,
It's gonna be even
but from
higher,
the Main
it's gonna
Street,
be, it's
driving
gonna
through
be
Main
even
Street, you're
higher
not,
on
it's
the
not gonna
north
be.
side compared to the south side is what I'm saying. Because the land sits up higher, you're going up 5 stories, you're gonna have 4 stories on the other side. The north side is going to be, appear much higher
From the river, but not from the Main Street.
from looking at it, yeah.
Main Street's level, so,
Yeah, I mean,
from the
the
back,
Main
yes.
Street would have to be like this, if,
The
for
back
what
of
you're
Main
saying,
Street
and it's not.
is like that from the
Well,
front.
slightly, it's 5 feet over.
No,
The
it's
back of
almost
the
10
parking
feet.
lot, but Main Street itself.
From the
where
river it would-
visual
from
for
the
you
river it
looking
might
down
not
Main
be.
Street, and
Right.
if you're comparing north to south side, it's not like this now. Back beyond south side towards the river, yes, there's that drop. But looking down the canyon of Main Street, it's not gonna be, visually,
There's a
it's not
slight
gonna
rise,
look like it's
there's a
built.
slight rise.
Yeah, you can't, well, beyond Main Street, you cannot see the
Right.
slope towards the river.
Well, I'm glad Laura brought up the Riverloft building actually, because I'd like to hear what the community thinks when that building goes up. That building's about to go up, and it's actually, to me, it's massive for
Well, that's
for
5
Main
stories, 60
Street.
feet, and
And
this
as
would take care
far
of.
as, you know, that it's necessary to have 5-story buildings, I mean, it seems to work fine in the other beautiful East End towns and out on the North Fork and such. I know we're somewhere in between, but, it seems to work well, and they seem to thrive without 5 stories directly on their Main Street. We are at a critical point for our town right now. We need to really look to the future and think about, you know, years down the road, are we gonna be glad that we put these 5-story buildings right on our Main Street?
If I could just say, and, you know, we're gonna have a philosophical debate on this, I'm vested in the town as long as you have, we both are, I get it. The town that I grew up in 40 years ago is not the town that's here, there's not 10,000 people here, there's almost 40,000 people here. When 58 got developed, we made Riverhead, and it was by design and by planning, we made Riverhead the shopping mecca for the East End, so that South Hull could keep its rural, the North Fork could be created to be the farming and the agritourism and the grapes and all that they enjoy out there. Riverhead is not the small little quaint little hamlet, it never will be again. 58 is the shopping mecca, and whether I like it or not, it is what it is. Main Street took a dive for them. When I worked on Main Street in the 70s, that was the big discussion. We're losing all our people to grants, and we're losing all our people to Caldor and to Billy Blake, and I get it. But now the whole thing has shifted, the economy and the whole workforce stuff and the TOD and all that transportation oriented, all that changed. So now Main Street becomes almost like what I consider a village mentality. If you had an incorporated village, they would look at the village as how can we be sustainable, how can our businesses have more worth, what is needed. And then you look at models like Patchogue and Bay Shore, all these places that used housing and the arts to create a workable, livable community. So that's where Riverhead's at now in the downtown. As far as the quaint, it's not there. The mom and pop's quaint little stores are not gonna, I don't ever see that coming back. I see arts, I see people living there, I see eateries, I
Restaurants,
see
performing
smaller
arts.
boutique type stores, maybe some clotheries, maybe some small groceries. That's where I see Main Street coming, but it's not gonna be a South Hole, sorry, it's not
Well,
gonna
I
turn
don't
out.
think we need to be Patchogue either, I mean, I like
No,
Patchogue and what
we're not
Patchogue
big
did,
enough, we're not as big as
but
Patchogue.
Riverhead
We would
is-
never be as big as Patchogue.
we are not Patchogue, and honestly, when I bring people into our downtown area from out of town, people will say, oh my gosh, what a quaint area. In fact,
Patchogue-
yesterday, there was a man here last night who'd been all over the world, and he said, oh, your downtown area is, is still quaint looking. And I think at this point, I mean, 4 stories is tall. We need to be strong leaders and we need to be visionaries at
Main
this
Street
point.
is quaint, it is quaint, but it has to be
Well,
sustainable.
not if you start
And, well, you
putting-
can't have
Not
businesses
if
come
you-
in and fail because there's no
But-
body that, I'm
But
telling
we're
you.
looking at a lot of features, we're not just looking at height,
And I,
we're looking at more things.
I know, that, right.
and I think,
And,
Still comes down to economics.
and it takes work, and we're working on it,
Well, I
the
think-
downtown committee's certainly working hard.
I don't think the vision they had 16 years ago was wrong.
and Jim, I'm gonna say that I think that we're unique in the sense that we have not just DC one, but DC two, DC three, DC four, and DC five.
Absolutely.
So I think that it's, a little, I would not like to see all of that congestion just in DC one. So I think by
Oh,
lowering
I think we
it,
can massage the
but I
code,
think to
absolutely.
lower DC one to the 4 stories and expand out with the highest stories just outside of what would be the focal point. Because I'm seeing DC one as the focal point, right? So you sort of build out a little bit higher around the edges and then come into a little bit less congestion so that there, you can support that retail and commercial along with the housing. And I think at
I've
4
been-
stories in DC one can accomplish that and then have it go out and build up a little
I
further
still think,
outside of
and
it.
I absolutely agree with you.
And that's my only thing.
And I've been saying Cascade in this town till I was blue in the face, when I used
Well,
to
then I
work the
would hope
pump
you
out
would
boat,
support
and I'd be
that
on the
with the
river,
four-
use the pump out boat, I'd say, boy, this town needs a Cascade
But I don't
river.
think we wanna cascade at 6 or 7
No,
stories
no,
out
no,
and
I
come
never wanna
in.
go above 5, it doesn't justify that, I really don't think it justifies that, but I can tell you that, not only would, I'm not opposed to 4 stories. I still think the town should put some of their money where their vision is and acquire property on that
I
south
don't
side to
disagree with you.
create a workable, a park, something that,
Right.
no matter what you build, is gonna be, oh my God,
Right.
if you ever go upstate and you go past Tupper Lake or Saranac Lake or even Lake Placid, it's the waterfront.
Drive there every other
Right.
month.
So then
And I think we're all in agreement on that, I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like anyone you talk to in Riverhead will talk about how we need to do more with greenery
Create public
and
space.
public
So-
space, I'm still talking, on the south side behind town. I think we're all in agreement
Yep.
on that. I mean, I'm
Which
just
ice skating
feeling
rink,
like,
all that crap.
you know, you are gonna change the look of things, you need to look at the Riverloft building when it goes up and think about whether you want that on the north side. It doesn't, as Laura's saying, we have lots of, you know, we do have lots of areas in Riverhead, and we do have other areas that we can put those,
Well, I look at the
put those
Preston
taller
House, I look
buildings.
at the Hyatt, and I look at, the Conic Land, to me, it's not gross. I mean,
But-
it doesn't seem offensive.
But they're set back very far, like, look at the Hyatt, the reason
Well,
that the
Conic
Hyatt.
is not.
But,
Conic
but,
Cross is right
but,
there.
but look at the Hyatt, right? The reason that the Hyatt is not so in your face is because it's set back very
Well,
far
that comes
off,
down to-
and off of Main Street, which is not the case of what is gonna happen in the rest of DC one, because we want to
Well, we're
restore.
trying to, well, that's what this is about.
But this is where we're making the decision
Design
here.
guidelines
Is
is there,
because
right.
you're going to come up to the curb without those setbacks that you have in the Hyatt, and that being so, the mass becomes greater.
Right.
So
Well, I
that's
think
why
that's
we
all-
have the other DC districts to be able to do that.
I don't.
No, it's 5.
Yeah, that would be the way, I mean, it's all through, that's what this is about. You know,
Yes.
creating a code that will create guidelines and construction guidelines and all, I get it, with setbacks and you look at visionscapes, you look at shadowscapes, all those things that are important to people walking on the street, all that's done through engineering, and it's, I mean, it's
Well,
an art
that's
to it.
why, like Laura, what you say with the mass and the scale and how the Preston House is set back, well, that's what we're doing with making a 15-foot setback on the 3rd floor, a 15-foot setback from the 3rd floor on the 4th floor, and a 15-foot, setback from the 4th floor to the 5th floor. So it's going to go like this from Main Street. It's not gonna be the Peconic or Gallows project. It's gonna be cascaded back.
Yeah,
The building
You're not
itself.
gonna see much on the south side
So,
being built
and
anyway.
I can say that
We're buying it.
with respect to the park on the river, I think that's a great idea also, something that was discussed with ARB and Landmarks. Once we finally do get the parking study and figure out where a parking garage would go, to have a service road that runs along the buildings, between the buildings and the river, and then make the rest green space
Oh, when I
where
win
the
a lotto,
parking
I'm
is.
buying that whole center part, there'll be no road on the back.
So, that would be the green space on the river. Eliminate those parking lots on the north side and have a service road to where the people that are living in the apartments and that the businesses that are there can get their deliveries and get drop-offs, and then they can, a service road that
south
runs
side.
right along the building. And then the rest of it be green space and be an open park to the river. So, you know, those are all ideas that have come out through ARB and landmarks, and maybe someday we'll have the funding to do it, but, you know,
Well,
it's
I mean, the
all-
boat with that, I mean, I got a drawer full of studies, I mean, you probably
I've
looked at them all,
read,
you probably
I've
looked
read
at
all
all
these,
of them.
but I
Read
think,
those.
you know, I think that I think everybody's vision is pretty much the same.
Yep.
But I think every decision is a layer upon a layer upon a layer, which will be the final outcome. So I think all of it needs to be taken
And that's just us.
together.
Wait till- wait till you get
Even with the park and the,
bitten
you
here.
know, putting a park and having green space in the back by the river, you know, none of that can happen unless we can mitigate the flooding. You know, so it's, everything's layer upon layer, but.
Park, you don't have to worry about
Those in that
flooding.
parking can't be done unless we have more parking,
Right.
so it's another layer.
Well,
Right,
if you
so,
put a
but it
park
all
in the
has to
middle
be
of-
looked at in
You don't
conjunction
need to
together.
worry about flooding.
So,
You have recharging right there, it's full grass and no pavement, you don't have to worry about the flooding.
I would leave that up to an engineer.
Well, I understand too that there's been pushback,
Get rid of the
there's been
parking lot altogether.
pushback from a few people, and that's to be expected. This is a big change, and we do need to all sit down and talk about it, but we also need to remember that we represent everyone in Riverhead, not a handful of developers. And we need to think about what everyone wants in our town, and once again, I'm saying we need to be visionaries, we need to look to the future. This decision that we're making at this time is key to our Main Street.
Well, the pushback is coming from stakeholders, not just developers.
Well, that's why I think that this meeting on the
There are a lot of other
31st
people we need to
is,
listen to
is,
as
is
well.
important to get the word out there. You know, as elected officials, we need to hear the feedback from the community, and that's what we're doing with.
and I think it's also important to, if we want to, when we have this meeting on the 31st, that we have some sort of rendering of what Main Street would look like from Main Street with the setbacks at the 3rd floor, the 4th floor, and the 5th floor, because the mass that you're talking about on the north side is not going to exist with those setbacks, on the north or the south side.
Well,
Have a pot of coffee and a bunch of donuts.
Well, Jeff, actually, we pulled out and dusted off one of the old studies that has been sitting in here in Town
Oh, I
Hall.
have it. At my
That
office.
is the bulk study, which has taken the buildings, and Jeff is using them to do some rendering, because I agree with you that I think having visuals, to look at the stuff,
Streetscapes are very important.
it makes it a little bit more, makes it a little easier to discuss what you're talking
And while
about.
Jeff's
And we
bringing that out, just to go to the way the whole process has gone, I mean, yes, we're getting pushback, that's to be expected, and that's because we're having it's been transparent, we've done this in a transparent way, as it should be done, and we should be getting feedback from everyone, but then after that, we need to make the best decision,
Well,
looking to what's best for the
You
town
keep
in the
saying
long run.
pushback, it's not pushback, it's feedback, I agree with you, it's
Yeah.
feedback.
Feedback's a better word.
Right.
So,
Agree.
as being pointed out, I started just, it's algebra. You start drawing out what the future development would look like,
So
and
it's algebra, is that what you
it's
said?
algebra. And that's what, I don't have enough
I
copies.
should
so-
be an expert in it, I took it twice in high school.
I took it twice.
You really liked it, didn't you, Tim?
Great
Do we have-
teacher.
Well, that's only showing 2 stories, isn't it?
Oh, that's
no, this
kinda-
is actually 3.
That's,
But that's not with the setbacks.
That's not with the setback, I was just giving a visual representation of what is allowed by the code today.
But if you, this is one of the other questions of some of the stuff we're talking about, if you
Yeah, that's
maintain
not-
the
that's not-
structure that's there,
do anything.
you know, will you get 100%
that-
build out?
And
Well,
then,
that's for a property owner to decide when they're interested in buying the property as to whether or not they can
And then
get the
the-
4 stories or the 5 stories.
as Laura pointed out, we do have the
Change the
existing
language
bulk
inside.
study, which has the graphics already. This is not, this is just a draft copy, not to be published or anything, this is just a
Sound design.
sketch. So, as soon as that gets published, people can think that,
You're right.
yep, it's,
What's the year of that bulk study?
It's
Yeah.
2000
Hold
and.
hold on. 2009.
Not to be confused with the Apollo situation that
No,
was
this is a
downtown?
study,
No,
this
we
is a
aud-
study
no,
where
we
they
audit
just took the, DC1 zoning district.
Yep.
And did what the height of the buildings for the build out of each one of the buildings could
come out
be.
with a more-
They eliminated the, what was currently the historic structures, feeling that they would not be taken down, and then it showed what the building heights could go to, with the current zoning at that time.
In the
That was-
back of this study.
That was paid by Apollo, right? Is that the one that Apollo did?
No, this was, I believe this was.
They did a complete
That's
build
about
out.
that time frame,
It's like a
right?
generic, I'm sure, or something.
Denise, Apollo?
I don't know, Dawn would know.
2005.
Yeah, no, this was a
So
No,
all I
no,
did was,
no, I
they
was in
did
office
the
when we got
visual
the one.
analysis of what it would look like under
2008,
pulled
9.
out under the existing, so all I did was, in this one, I only did one example just to see if it would, how it would look. I took what their future build-out would look, and the second photo is from Google Maps Street View of the exact same view, so you can see what today looks and what it would look like under build-out, so you can just take it and pass it around.
But it doesn't have the setbacks on the third floor.
No, this is just based upon what's
This is-
already in this study.
It's what's in the code.
It's
What
in the-
I'm saying is that when you go up here, like here's 1, 2, 3, and then they
Yep.
wanna put a fourth and a fifth floor, the fourth floor is gonna start here.
Correct, and that's very important, especially on the south side.
Oh, yeah, hold on, let me fix my
But
hair.
this was, you know, it does have what buildings have the potential
is gonna be here.
likelihood to be
You
built
don't
out.
need me in here.
Fourth floor is
Come
gonna
on,
be
Jeff.
here.
I mean, I don't think anybody, including developers, would wanna build a box.
Well,
That's how it's at.
that's
Larry, can you get this up? Can you get this
Nothing about for
up?
housing.
I believe the bulk study is
Beautiful.
up
Let's do
on
it.
the,
Let's do it. I'm in favor.
I
I
think
want
Dawn,
eight-story buildings,
I think Dawn
straight
put all
down
the
the line.
studies up on there.
When we come in for the,
Give
when we
me
come in
people,
for the
baby.
January 31st design charrette, when we talk about all this, I'll have a lot more graphics like this, so everybody can have their own individual copy, and when there'll be big copies, so people can walk
But
around
we're
it.
trying to
And
get the
Catherine's gonna
visuals.
bring wine, and cheese.
All right,
Yeah,
Jeff,
but with the I'm telling you, with the visionscapes, with the
No wine, but
setbacks,
cheese.
I mean,
I think the discussion here is the one story, the fourth or the fifth. So that is on the
Everybody has their
one
own
side of the
opinion
street, whether
on what
it's
they
the
all
fourth
look
or the fifth. So if we wanna go on to the next,
Yeah, and that goes back to the next part of the memo, which is I think there's consensus from everybody, and correct me if I'm wrong, about having the building step back from the third floor and the fourth floor. I think there's general consensus on that.
Yes,
Okay.
well,
and the fifth floor
it
on
comes,
the
it
north
comes
side.
down, right, it comes down to,
Correct, it'll be, as you go up, you step it farther back. Jim, you
Yeah.
seem to,
no, I get it, I don't find 5 to be offensive, I don't want it on the south side.
Right.
But 5 being planned and developed and constructed in such a way to have the sitescapes from the street where you don't have the shadowing, you don't,
Right.
you know, and is set back to a point where there's no visual impact, is a moot point, really.
The-
You don't
the
wanna,
fifth
you're
floor
not,
is
you
gonna
don't
be
think
set 45 feet back.
5-story, like a block over even, a few blocks over?
No,
It's all, I mean,
a
our
5-story
downtown
building
area is
on the,
pretty,
5-story building is gonna be no taller than the Fenimore Meyer house on First Street.
how tall is a five-story, how tall could a five-story building?
60 feet.
60 feet, 60 feet.
Go look at Fenimore Meyer's house across from Lombardi Park.
How,
60 feet. Yeah,
What's your opinion?
let's keep going.
The next one is, side, you know how we stepped it back from the front and rear, and the question is, do you wanna do the same step back on the third and fourth floor, from the side of the building?
I am an absolute no on that.
what
No,
are we
I don't.
doing?
No, I don't need
You know
Empire
how your
State
front and
Building.
rear step back, we're stepping back?
Yeah.
Do you want the same thing as the wedding cake is on the sides of the building also?
I think that, as the ARB and Landmark said at the joint meeting, that that should be discretionary to the ARB and the Landmarks as to where the 15-foot setback should occur on the upper floors. Cause if you're in an alleyway, do you want it to go 5 stories up and create the canyon effect in the alleyway? Or do you want it to be set back on the third floor in the alleyway and set back on the fourth floor in the
Comes up.
alleyway? So you may wanna step back on the third floor and then, step it back on the
I think it depends on
fourth
public
floor,
spaces,
you know,
where it
it's-
encompasses
yeah,
public space.
It's you can be creative with the design, with the form-based zoning, so it's the concept of not having the canyon effect.
Okay, so we'll keep it discretionary, okay. Here's gonna be a difficult one. Do you want a side yard setback at the first floor?
I think that should also be, well, I think that should also be as to whether or not an alleyway would be applicable there, but we're limiting the lot coverage to 80%, so 20%.
Well, that's still up for,
That's
discussion.
That's coming
'Cause
later
I
on in
think,
my presentation.
I think if you limit the lot coverage to 80%, I think if somebody already has 100% coverage with a historic building that's there, I think we need to encourage the 100% to keep the historic building that's
course,
there.
of
So, but
course.
if you're telling them they can only have 80% lot coverage and they have to go for
And you exempt existing structures, if they're gonna leave the existing structure and it's already lot line to lot line, then you exempt existing structures.
And I did talk with Brad
Yes.
Hammond about that, and he said, yes, they
You
would.
can grandfather in the existing
Yes.
structures, correct.
So, the idea of the landmarks and the ARB, and also Catherine and myself, what was expressed, is having these alleyways with little stores going down the alleyways to the river on the south side, and then on the north side as well, as they had with, the Blue Door Gallery when it was behind Haiku, and, you know, little things like that, little stores, that the landmarks and the ARB both liked that idea. So, I think we need to, the 15-foot side yard setbacks, if you could get it from two buildings that are right next to each other,
Okay,
then
but,
you're creating a larger alleyway for those side stores.
so let's just take an example, let's take Haiting.
Yep.
Small lot, small coverage. I buy that piece of property, and let's just say we could put up 4 stories on that side, I take that building down, and now I gotta put a 15-yard side yard, and what, that building probably isn't more than 50 feet wide.
So, as I've said,
25.
week after week after week after week after week, since we've been discussing the DC1 zoning, that Jeff is working on a feasibility study to say that if you have a lot, or if you incorporate more than 100 feet of frontage, or 100 feet of lot width, then you can afford 15 feet on the side. It's not gonna be for the 25-foot lots, because then you can't build anything, it's not gonna be for the 50-foot lots, it's not gonna be for the 75-foot lots, it's not gonna be for the 90-foot lots, it's gonna be for.
So you have to be 100?
Well, Jeff is doing the feasibility study to see which buildings are for sale, and which, you know, properties
would
can be accumulated.
The only one it would work for is you'd have to buy them one building, I don't think there's any building down there, what building?
West
Maybe
Marine
West
is right
Marine, I
next
don't even know
to.
if that's 100 feet in the front.
Yeah, but if they buy
That's
the
not 100
property
feet in
next
the
door,
front.
but if they buy the property next
Easy's
door and
in
make
the
it part
front
of the
is
same
not-
project,
Is not 50
anyway.
feet.
I don't wanna bring it
anything-
out, because then I started my analysis, but it's in a very, very rough draft.
Anything
I
less
don't
than
wanna bring
100
it
feet, I would say no, they wouldn't have to do a 15-foot side yard.
I don't know that it shouldn't be the town creating the alleyways, having to purchase property to create an alleyway down there. I don't know if that onus needs to be on the property owner to create an alleyway with their neighbor.
Wow, the onus,
Because
the
if
onus on the
somebody
property
is,
owner.
if somebody has a building that they don't wanna take down, and somebody has a building they wanna take down, and we get 15 feet, are we looking for a 30-foot alleyway, a 30-foot walkway in between?
I'm with you
I-
on that.
I can't figure it
think-
out.
I mean, just thinking about it in my head, and I haven't had a chance to look at a paper, but I can tell you, I like the idea of something in the front, because I like, when I look at where Blue Duck is and all that, that's nice to have, you know, it's a nice way to open up, yeah, it opens up, that I like in the front. I don't want everybody to have a side, because I think alleyways and access to the river and to parking fields should be by design and not by happenstance. And I think if you have a lot of property and everybody, but you're gonna have too many accesses, I mean, you gotta be able to control flow.
You don't have to have
And that's
it.
part of the pop.
That could be that's part of the next thing we're gonna talk about.
You really need to
talking
look at
about
it and
alleys
see
and
which
houses.
properties are for sale, cause if the West Marine owner were to buy the property next door or the Sears site, if they were, I mean, David Gallo at one time was looking to buy his property on the corner, and then he was also looking to
I
buy
know.
the Sears site, so he would have a 200-foot block. So instead of having a 200-foot block,
You may have
he
an
would
alley in
have 180 or 185, cause he would have to create a 15-foot walkway going down, so it wouldn't just be a solid face of a
Well,
wall.
that could be.
I think that's one thing we need to take a look at, is distance between alleyways. As
Yeah.
Jim's saying, he doesn't want building alley, building alley, building alley, maybe you have a block of buildings.
But
and
we
then you have
also
your alley.
know in a walkable downtown, one of the killers of a walkable downtown is not the visual interest walking past.
Right.
So we really need to take that into account, because I mean, study after study after data after data after data says you do not, to have a walkable downtown breaks an interest all the time.
So,
You
take a
mean
look.
to have too many alleys, or you were
True.
saying?
For about, like, what is it, 150 feet, 200 feet, whatever it is.
You start losing
don't,
interest.
you don't want breaks in those amounts of distance. You want something that draws one person to the next place, to the next place, to
I've
the next
watched
place.
it for 15 years, the
So
east
it's,
and the west town,
you
and it
know,
was dissected by the.
Are we putting into the code exactly what we don't
Well,
want?
we're trying
I'd
to
like
get.
to see
I
those
think we
studies.
have to wait to see the
Yeah,
study, to
yeah,
see,
you
to
were
get a
working
better
on that,
idea of
so-
how many properties and the
Right.
widths of those properties.
So let's
because
discuss that
obviously
the
it-
next
Yes,
time.
it could, I'm just,
50-foot
we're just
property,
bringing
you're not
stuff
gonna
up
do
for
that
this,
to
this
it.
is.
Yep. But let's
We're
get
not-
our,
we're not- we're not there yet.
facts straight.
The next item is the POP, and I had recommended 20%, and this could be, and just so everybody knows, a POP means privately owned public space. There are options with this, one is you can require a POP in the 20% and any improvements on the property. If there's not a room available on the property, they could provide an off-site location and then provide the improvements in an off-site location if the town has a central location that they wanna see improved. Or failing that, they could provide the cash or equivalent in lieu of it, and we could put into a dedicated fund for downtown improvement.
And I think one thing that the board needs to consider on this is the park and recs fee for each, apartment that is going in. Right now, it's, you know, if somebody builds a subdivision, they have to contribute to the park and recs fee. I think that should,
$1,000 a lot.
that we should have something in here that pertains to this also, because I think even more so in an area that becomes, obviously, we're urbanizing this area, that we need to be able to have the green space in the urban area, so, and that this fee becomes key to being able to, so, but I don't wanna overfee some
disagree with it, but
people.
that's what I was just gonna say,
It's gotta be
you don't
dedicated.
wanna chase people out because you're tacking on all these other things. If you need the development and you want the development, you're gonna hinder what comes in because the cost factor of that job now becomes greater and you're not gonna get, you know, the builder's not gonna get the bang for their buck, and obviously they're in it to make money, so they're not gonna do it and not make money, and honestly, Jim touched on this earlier, we need that foot traffic downtown for downtown to be revitalized, we need the apartment spaces down here, I completely agree with that.
I think we're all in
But the
agreement on
more
that.
we limit what they can do, and not saying it has to be this massive canyon effect, we've got so many different ideas we're looking at about tiering the building backs and, the tops back and setbacks and everything else. I think we can come to some type of agreement that we need it, but we can do it right. And I think that's part of, with this committee, Catherine, that's going on, and getting the input from all the different people is gonna be so healthy. And I truly, I look forward to the 31st, because I think there's gonna be a
I
lot
just don't
more
know whether to
ideas
bring
than what
coffee or
we're just
scotch, I don't
discussing
know.
about here from people who have good ideas also, so.
Well, the way
I look forward to it.
Yeah, and as you said, the way we've handled this whole process has been to take community input and to, you know, listen to what everybody has to say, and I feel like we have been very transparent with the process, and I think it's the right way for it to be done. But we need to hear from, you know, we wanna hear from people.
Right, so talk about onus on property owners and developers with a 15-foot side yard setback. If you're going to have them create a 20% POP or privately owned public space, and then you're going to charge them rec fees on top of that, I think that we need to, like Tim said, look at the economics of that also, cause we don't wanna deter anybody from coming to invest.
Well, the rec
And
fees go for
you're-
all buildings or just residential?
It goes
Well,
for
it's
the
been with
residential.
residential developments
it
in the
goes for
past.
Just the
but-
Right,
residential, and that's where it would stay.
So it's
Right.
the residential that's the problem, because they would get hit twice, is that the problem?
No,
get
they're
charged twice.
paying for the POP,
Right.
and they're paying for the,
Well,
That's
the
what I'm
pop,
saying.
the pop, this is what I'm saying, the
Comes down to
pop,
rentals.
the pop could be, the
Developers
pop
are gonna
is
charge rent to
just,
cover all that.
the pop could be your alleyway, you know what I mean, the 20%, you know, when they come before the planning board, before the town board as planning, your pop can be your alleyway.
Yep.
Could
On
be
a larger
setback on the
larger
first
project, so
floor
you
with
can
some
get that
greenery
without
and
mandating the alleyway,
benches
but
and
that happens
statues
on a
and-
building by building basis in the planning stages, so
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer it to stay in this than a yard setback, that's
and
my
then
point
you
of it.
also wanna impose a recreation fee for all the residential units, you just said.
I think that there should be a fee for the for the units. What that will be, I don't know if it needs to be as we need to have a discussion as to what it will be as opposed to a house in a subdivision
Right, they're
versus,
apples and
a size of an apartment or one bedroom, two bedroom studio, whatever it is, a fee into that. But the reason for the park and rec
At
fee
market
is to enhance the project that is going in there, to be able to have that for the, so it's a direct benefit,
Okay,
to the
so-
person paying that fee.
So that needs to be added to this, because it should be one of the items up for discussion on the 31st.
We already have it in the code, it's just never been imposed.
What's
Not
nice
for
about-
apartments, for subdivisions.
Okay,
What's nice about the POP, obviously, is that it, you know, it's a nice thing for the people that are renting the apartments that are coming into the residential that we're putting in the downtown. It's also nice for the rest of the people
I
that
agree.
live in Riverhead. So, you know, if we can figure out how to balance it where we're not tacking on too many fees, it's a win-win for everybody.
So that's a future discussion.
Mhm.
I haven't even got into the rec fee yet,
Can I just-
I'm just focusing on the
Can I just say,
physical
on
element of it.
Jeff.
on the 31st, cause I'm not gonna bring my pillow with me, is there gonna be we're gonna have discussion items?
you know what, why don't at the next work session, I'll bring up, a
Because, I
structure
mean,
and an agenda.
I think we're gonna have more than one of these public forums,
I agree,
and I think we should limit it to.
As we
the
should.
topic.
Yeah.
I
as
think,
we
I
should.
think if we
That's a
limit,
good idea.
if we limit the topic, whether it's, you know, maybe we don't start out with height, maybe we start out with one of the other one, or we can start out with height, but I think we'll come up with an agenda, and we also have to come in the format we wanna do it, whether we wanna do a visual presentation, whether we wanna do a little bit of breakout here and there for different things, so
That'd be good.
we need to figure out how we're gonna do it, I just wanted to set the date, so we have a goal to
Good.
reach, and then we can figure the structure
Well, and the
for it.
nice thing about discussing it at work session and laying out what we're going to be doing is people know, you know, people have things to say, they know what night to come, and they know what we're addressing, but it does seem like height affects the others, though.
I was
If
just
you
kidding,
put
I was
on-
kidding
oh,
then.
okay.
It's economics, yeah,
Yeah.
all comes down to economics.
Yeah, and it's, I think if, with hearing the direction about the TDRs, that will help set the table, so to speak, in terms of the height. So, I think if we focus on the height, and that's what the ARB and Landmarks were saying, is they didn't wanna muddy the waters with the TDR economics issue to it, they wanna focus on the height.
I think that
And
they're
as
two,
a starting
they're,
point.
yeah, they're two different, one should not influence the other.
Right.
Right, and then when you talk about these pops, you also have to talk about if it is a full build out from property line to property line, side to side and front to back, then they obviously couldn't do a pop there.
On
'cause-
site, they would have to either,
Right.
my thinking was that they could provide an off-site location.
Yeah.
And I'll give you one really good example that, we met with a developer a few weeks ago, and he got really wigged out about that whole concept, and they said, but wait a minute, you've got this whole town parking lot in the back, you've got substandard drainage, substandard parking design, the asphalt is broken up, there's no curbing, landscaping is abominable, and you've got a boardwalk that goes to nowhere, and you wanna propose this really nice development, and you're overlooking that. I said, if you were to propose improving that, and all of a sudden, it clicked on him, and like, yeah, I can improve that, and it helps, it
Right.
improves the marketing
So-
of his units, and it helps the town, so it's a win-win.
on number 7, where it says, should there be a privately owned public space requirement, 20% proposed for all new development, it should also say some in here, or, contribution of funds for off-site development.
Yeah, that's item C.
So Jeff, someone who does the POP, they're not gonna do it on their,
Okay, yep.
their,
They could.
lot.
They could,
They
I
could
gave
al-
3
but they could
options.
I know, but they could also do it over in that area where we keep talking about that we
Yeah.
need green space, which
Yep,
is
and
sort
that's
of
item B.
behind,
Yep.
you know, behind, like between Sweezy's
Yep.
and the diner. That would be
But-
like a key area for green space.
But all of these options happen at the planning stage.
Yep.
They are
Right.
they are not predetermined, somebody couldn't
Right.
come
You
in
wanna
and
keep it
say,
flexible.
yeah, this
Right.
is all happens, because obviously each site is unique, each
Right.
building is unique, each
Yep.
project is unique, and this allows the flexibility to be able to,
Control access.
And I like that
Exactly.
It's all about
you
people
have all
flow.
the options.
Yep.
Yep.
That's wise. Okay,
very good job, Jeff, thank you
Sure.
very much.
thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff, and,
We'll see you in a few minutes.
I just don't know whether the 31st calls for coffee or scotch.
How about we give you an Irish coffee?
Well, it starts at 6, we'll meet for dinner at 5.
Oh, okay, we know what kind of meeting that's gonna be.
Just kidding.
All
January
right,
31st.
move on to resolutions.
6,
I
but
just have to
I'd
wait
wait
for
for the
my-
public advisory first to make sure that I'd wait, because we don't know where we're gonna have it on the 31st at 6 o'clock, and what kind of setup it's gonna be. I know last time we did one of these with the BOA study, we did it at the Suffolk Theater. He opened up his doors to us so that we could have the boards all over with all the ideas, and people had sticky notes that they put on the boards,
That's
and
a
at
good
the end of the
priority
night,
for
we
that.
counted up all the sticky notes as to which people wanted what, and it was very productive.
It'll probably be here. 'Cause I
So
think
anyway, I
what
would
was
wait.
Henning? There's
That was
gonna be
for the
many.
Bow study.
For the bow study.
Okay.
So,
I'm up.
I'm not,
I guess we'll decide where we're gonna have it, and then send out a public notice or a media advisory.
great idea, Jody.
We
I think
will.
we'll do it that way.
Sounds good.
I'm just trying to get to the resolutions.
It's like a, right, it's not a meeting.
Yeah, a public forum for discussion on DC one, proposed changes.
Opportunity for people to come and speak their mind.
And I had asked for this resolution to be in the packet today, and it never made it in the packet, so while we're going over resolutions, actually, let me take some for the press, I'll give you.
I believe, Jody, we
No,
have
let
that
me
on
see if it's
exec
ready.
before we put
Okay.
out that resolution.
I wanna put the resolution out
Go right
because
ahead, go right ahead.
we could put it up for a vote, a yes or a no vote.
But we don't vote on resolutions now.
No, but I'm saying it can go in the packet, and it can get voted on Tuesday night. So we can discuss it in executive session this afternoon, but I would like a vote on it on Tuesday night, because it's been in discussion since.
Jody, can we just pull up the resolutions and as we go through, at the end, you can add that one if you like.
Sure.
It's Jim. We'll just wait a second for Jim. Just getting this back.
Yeah, he's having trouble with his Surface. Here he comes. Out, he's gonna be happy.
Oh, you're back
Now
in the
you're happy.
21st
You got your
century
Surface
now.
back.
No, I don't know, I'm not,
Oh.
it's been sitting on our office, so I'll try it again.
Well, you can look at mine.
I don't wanna look at yours. No, I look at yours.
All right, so can I start, or you wanna wait to see if you can get
Okay,
this
no,
over with?
please, no, I can listen.
One is ratifies the execution of MOU with the Riverhead Town Police Benevolent Association. Next is ratifies execution of an MOU between the Town of Riverhead and the Civil Service Employees Association, Inc., Local 1000, AFSCME, AFL-CIO, Riverhead Unit of the Suffolk Local Number 852, Riverhead Town Police Benevolent Association, and the Riverhead Town Superior Office Association, Inc.
Denied.
Number 3 is grants approval of the special permit application of the Masson Residence Offices
Conversion.
918 Main Road, Aquabog, Suffolk County Tax Map 600-67-3-15.
And I'm still waiting for information from the chief that I asked for a few weeks ago, so,
Right, so,
about the accidents.
so he did say that he'll have
said
that,
he'll
so
do that,
hopefully he'll have that
hopefully.
before. If not, we can always table it. 4 is authorize attendance of the fire marshal, to the IAAI conference. 5 is authorize town clerk to publish and post a public notice of public hearings to consider a proposed law for amendment to chapter 255 entitled Parades, Assemblies, and Special Events of the Riverhead Town Code. That change was that when we had put in the 50C3B,
Right.
we didn't include some of the other agencies, so it's just to include those as not-for-profits as well. I know that was a concern of some people. 6 is increase in refuse, waste disposal contract. 7 is authorizes amendment to contract between the Town of Riverhead and European American Waste Disposal Corp. For the resident solid waste collection and disposal services for the Riverhead Refuse and Garbage District. 8 is approves agreement with RC Systems, Inc. for purchase, support, and maintenance of RecPro software. 9 is authorizes attendance at the Government Finance Association's annual conference. 10 is sewer district capital project number 249, budget adjustment. Number 11, it reappoints members to the Riverhead Farmland Preservation Committee. That is number 11, 12, and 13. Number 14 is accepts the retirement of a senior administrative assistant. Number 15 is annual review and adoption of investment policy for the town of Riverhead. 16 is authorizes renewal of a license agreement. 17 is authorizes the supervisor to execute an agreement with Long Island Telecommunications and Electronic Services. 18 is
What's that for?
that's for the music for, the different music contracts that we sign
For
every
playing
year.
musics and stuff down
Yeah,
there, like
they-
events and at the senior
Right.
Yeah,
citizens.
BMI and all
I
those.
think there's two or three companies that we, that need to
Yes,
get.
yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
It's an annual thing that we do.
Yeah. What am I, 18 now?
18.
You're going fast, you're
sorry.
going fast, yeah.
authorize execution of a professional service agreement with municipal CMS LLC. 19, it awards bids non-pro-tunc for used or refurbished postage machine, I know that's killing you, Jim.
Watch your language.
20 is accepts the retirement of a detective.
Just go down under Dixon.
Dixon, yeah. 21 is accepts the retirement of a police officer.
Kerry Davis.
22 is 2018 bond service payment allocation. 23 is approves execution of professional service agreement with Granicus for fiscal year 2019. 24 is approves professional service agreement with Business Administration Services Heat for clerk licensing systems, dog licensing systems module, and for ongoing support of the BAS software modules, integrated property system or IPS, tax collection, building and zoning workflow. The only thing we're going to do is ask to take the FOIL off of that, just because, it's being split up with different departments, and I'm just not sure, that, that's what they wanna do at this point with the split up, so we're just gonna pull that off as the agreement from that resolution. 25 is approved settlement of a claim. 26 is establishes settlement authority to Office of Town Attorney regarding claims made against the town of Riverhead. The thresholds are the same as we did last year. 27 is bid for fertilizer and lawn chemicals. 28 is authorizes annual license with pictometry, International Corporation, 50 users. Jody, you want to add this resolution?
Yes, I do.
What would you like to add?
This is to authorize Supreme Court action against the owners and tenants and occupants and mortgagee of premises located at 1615 Old Country Road, Riverhead, New York. For 10 years, the residents of Glenwood Village have had to suffer with the delivery service of Peapod, which seems to be growing on a daily basis, and it has become a major distribution center. They have noise violations in Justice Court, and there are other violations on the site that the town attorney is looking into. This resolution just authorizes the town attorney to retain experts as he may in judgment to be necessary to the prosecution of legal actions commenced in the Supreme Court, and then also to bring a Supreme Court action if deemed necessary by the town attorney.
And I'm going to say that I believe that this resolution is premature. I think that the, owners.
10 years is premature.
Let me finish, please. I think that we had a scheduled meeting with them that they did not attend the other day. They have agreed to attend a meeting, and I think that we should meet with them after 11 years of this. I think that a 1 week's time before bringing legal action, is prudent for the town to do, and if there is no outcome after a meeting or receiving some information from them. Brian, you're not allowed to comment from the audience. That I think that a 2 weeks' time after 11 years before bringing action, is the prudent thing for the town to do, and as of the following meeting, if we have no resolve, then I think that this is certainly the way to go forward.
How about if we,
I'm the 10th
okay, wait,
biggest taxpayer
Brian,
in town.
Brian, you cannot talk
Brian.
about
I've been
that.
put off for 10 years by your town, so you should vote on it immediately.
Can
I'm
I
not
have-
waiting another
and if they come in for the meeting and everything is resolved, then
Wow,
we
be a
will
little more
not move
respectful there,
forward
sir.
with the Supreme Court action. So at least we'll have this resolution to authorize the town attorney, and if they do not do as they're expected to do as per the meeting, then he has the authorization to commence action.
I
If they
think this
do,
is premature grandstanding on your part,
you've been
Jody.
trying to set up a meeting with them, Laura, since August, and you've been ineffective in doing so.
Absolutely not
It
true. We have
absolutely is. I have the emails.
Judy, I scheduled one meeting with them the other
No.
day, that they were going to attend, they canceled on that meeting, and they have rescheduled the meeting within 3 days, so, that is not true.
I have the emails back and forth, but
Judy,
anyway.
you do
I-
not have
I
those
want
emails
this to
back and
go-
forth, because they do not exist,
I
we had
want-
only set up a meeting the other day.
I want this to go for a vote on Tuesday night.
You-
Are there three votes to
There's
put
no
this in the
voting whether
packet
the
for a vote?
resolution goes through at this point.
Okay, well, I would like it in the packet. This is
You
not
need
a
to get five-
dictatorship.
You need to get,
No.
is it 5 signatures to
The
get?
night to pull it off the floor you do, but it's in the packet right now.
No, I believe, okay.
What was the question? I'm sorry, there's a lot back and forth.
To add a resolution,
Sure.
does it need 5 signatures to have it? No, I think it's off the floor that night.
Yes,
Off
it
the floor
is.
that night, it needs 5, to do it now, it needs 3.
No, off the floor that night, does not need 5.
This is not a dictatorship.
You know what,
The town board members should be able to put up a resolution
on how to
for a
do
vote.
it, and we will follow the proper
Now,
procedure.
comment about your rules.
Right, exactly.
So we can have Bob comment and.
Well, three votes
Okay.
can always bring it off the floor, that's.
Correct,
that's-
thank you.
that's-
Thank you.
That's, but,
That's, yeah. So we will have Bob comment and put a memo out on
I think he needs 5
it.
to take it off the floor, but it's in the packet as far as I'm concerned, and I think that any town board member should be able to bring forth a resolution for a vote. And I've been asking for this to be put on, and
There's a
I want it to
procedure,
be
there's
on
a
for
procedure
Tuesday.
to bring forth a would you like to have Bob come, have
Yeah,
Bob come in?
that'd be great.
I can tell you that I know this has been an ongoing problem for a long.
Oh, I absolutely agree, it's an ongoing problem, and I don't say that. All I'm saying is, I'm
I
asking
understand
for
the
what-
urgency, well, I don't
11
understand the
years.
urgency, but I don't know what has or has not been done since it's been
Correct,
brought.
correct.
I mean, I went and visited myself, it was over the summer, I went and sat in the guy's backyard with him. And saw the problems that were happening there. I thought there was work going on with Mr. Stark, I'm a little ashamed of his behavior, but with him and the owner, wasn't there some negotiations
Yes.
privately going on at
Yes.
that?
It has been going on for years, and they have not brought a plan forth. They went to the Justice Court, cause they were issued tickets for
But they
noise
had a- they
violations.
have a plan.
Let me finish. They went to the Justice Court for noise violations. The town attorney told them, bring in the plans for the mitigation. There are 2 sets of plans drafted up. It's been 30 days since they came to court, and they still have not submitted those plans to the town. This
The
will
town had
compel
not,
them.
the town had not
if I can
requested, but the
finish.
town had not requested to be delivered those plans.
Yes, he did. The
No,
town
he
attorney,
didn't.
can get Eric in here too.
Well, while
This
we're
is,
waiting,
this
Jim,
is,
what did you
this
see?
is information for council and is part of executive session. So if you'd like to go into executive session to discuss it with our attorney, we can.
No, I want
Because
this
it's pending
resolution in the packet on
Okay,
Tuesday
while
night is
we're
what I want.
waiting, I'd like Jim to talk
No,
about
I
when he
said
said
that-
he sat in someone's
Yeah.
backyard
Well,
and
I realize
observed,
that, no,
so
the
what-
issue,
what
I
did
think
you
we all
say
agree
with
that the issue is real. That-
No,
that
absolutely.
it's disturbing, it's really,
Is it
it does a
noise
bu-
and lights, or?
it's.
Sound.
It's sound.
Sound.
And I know that Stop and Shop does have a plan that they paid for, an engineered plan, they just haven't instituted as far as a
They're
sound
not
buffer
going
and all
to,
that
unless
stuff.
we compel them
Do
to.
you know what their plan was? What
Of
they were
sound
gonna-
wall.
I can tell you what happened the other day, okay, so
30 grand.
Glenwood had reached out that they were having issues with Stop and Shop that has been going on since 2007, okay? So they reached out to me a little while ago, we reached out to Stop and Shop, and Glenwood had said that they would like to resolve the issue, and if we could help them and assist them in helping to resolve this issue. I said, fine, reached out to Stop and Shop, Bob, I'll have you come up. Stop and Shop agreed to attend, a meeting, with us, with the town attorney, and with Glenwood, and that was the other day. Stop and Shop was
Just
not
this
aware.
week, this past week, right? I
Yes,
thought he said-
what, the other day? Stop and Shop did Tuesday. Stop and Shop was not aware that Mr. Stark would be attending it with his attorney. And so Stop and Shop said, we did not realize that there would be attorneys present for Glenwood there. We do not feel comfortable, we thought it was coming into a business meeting. So they said that they were going to not attend that meeting, but they would be willing to meet within the next week or so.
And
And
then-
so that's,
With their
then they'll
attorney
bring
or
their
whatever.
no, without their attorney, without their
okay.
attorney at that point. And that they have received violations over at Stop and Shop because of the noise. They have been to court here, those violations, and the last time they went to court, which was in the December 6th or so, our counsel had said to them that Stop and Shop then informed us that they were doing a new noise study, because the complaint was that there's increased noise in there. We were waiting for the completion of that noise study, which I believe was completed just recently, which they have shared with us as of this morning. So that,
Technically
last night, okay, so they
When
didn't attend the meeting,
This resolution was coming forward.
No.
They were not
No,
aware of
they
the
did-
resolution.
They were aware of the resolution coming forward, because I made
So
a
are you
phone
telling
call
Bob
after
that
Tuesday.
he's not
Not
correct?
aware from me, okay.
I think the
Okay.
bottom line is,
Not aware
is
from me.
results and effect, more than,
Correct.
so
So,
anyway, go ahead.
so what I am asking is to allow Stop and Shop to give their results from their study, allow us the ability to digest it for at least 1 week before we put a resolution forward saying that we are taking them to court. that was my only concern. It's not to stop this, if this resolution goes in 2 weeks from now, I think that if we can resolve this, because the whole point of this is to resolve this, to reduce the noise for the neighbors that are there. And if we can do that within a 2-week period, instead of taking them to court, which will not only be a big expense for everybody involved, but will also extend the amount of time that it will take to resolve it. Either they're going to be, you know,
I get it.
have an interest
I
in
get it.
resolving it
I
or
di-
not, that's it.
I'll be honest, I didn't hear word for word what that, oh, here it is right here.
This is
Resolution
not
said.
taking them to Supreme Court.
Who
This
wrote
is
this anyway?
authorizing the
terrible.
town attorney to bring them to court if deemed necessary. So if it's cleared up in 2 weeks, then this gets ripped up. If it's not, he can move forward to Supreme Court.
Well, obviously,
It lights a fire under them and gets them to compels them
As
to
you
do
haven't done in the past 11
what they
years.
should have done. No, because this resolution was never put forward.
Why not, in 11 years? We're at
Well-
the ninth
Here's
hour
the
here,
email to
where they're
you,
coming
dated
in,
July.
when they're coming in, and in 11 years, you haven't taken this step.
Why
I don't
haven't
know
you
why
done
one.
anything since
Well-
August, since
Oh my
these emails
God.
started coming to you?
I don't wanna get
Bob,
caught into
jump
the
in.
debate back and forth, but first and foremost, just to be true from a calendar standpoint or a historical standpoint. First approval was granted in 2006, let's just go through the history so that, you know,
the
whether we say
approval
it's 50.
for them to do the
For
P-POD.
Stop and Shop
build it.
To build.
building.
Right,
Oh, that's
They
right.
received their first site plan approval in 2006. Sometime between 2006 and 2007, the function of site plan approval was turned over from the town board to the planning board. In 2007, the planning board took up 3 separate resolutions amending the site plan that was approved by the town board in 2006. 2 of the last iterations included the P-POD component. So in 2007, they received the approvals to move forward with a Stop and Shop supermarket and a P-POD as an accessory use. They built thereafter. I'm not sure when the CO was issued, but we'll get back to you on that when the actual CO was issued. So, but if it was 2007, the issue or whatever occurred started at that time. I started in 2011. I can tell you that in 2011, I did not have complaints landing on my desk about noise. Probably somewhere between 2012 and 2013 was when the issue started. At that time, Stop and Shop did a report with their consultant, VHB. And that's when things started to move forward. We have been working with Lisa Ham from Stop and Shop from time to time.
Who's no longer gonna be there after a month, she's
So-
retiring.
So we've been going around with them, and I will, and so that's the history, just to kind of reiterate the time, so it hasn't been a noise issue for 15 years, it hasn't been a noise issue for 10 years, not at least brought to our attention. Again, maybe it was an issue out there once they started operation, but not to the town's knowledge.
And how many violations have we issued them for the
We've
noise?
issued them 3 separate dates of violations, and I don't know the total number of
But those
counts.
violations occurred this year?
No, those were issued last year.
I mean, last year,
Oh,
2018,
yeah,
so all
yeah.
3 violations were issued.
Past 3
Now, had they had any previous violations prior to that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that we wrote them for.
Okay.
Okay, so we did start working on it in this past year. Cause
We've
you're right, you
issued-
started
we-
writing
We wrote them
violations.
town code violations.
And they went out and did sound studies, and it was found to be noisies, and they were issued violations for that.
Well, Rich went through the process that you would normally go through when you get a complaint to code enforcement. Field the complaint, you go investigate, it's founded or it's not. If it's founded, you issue either
Speak a little louder.
You issue either an NOV or summons, and he issued the summonses. That's
Right,
what
and
happened.
when they were in court on December 6th, they were asked to bring back the noise studies and to bring back the plans, right?
I was out.
No.
You were,
December
you,
6th.
I thought you said.
I covered court on December 6th.
He had a
so-
baby.
Okay, so,
And there wasn't a specific statement that they had to file a set of plans with us by a date certain. That instead, they were going to do the study, come back with their report, come back with recommendations for mediation, and at that point, set up a meeting to discuss them. And that's what the meeting of this past Tuesday
So
was supposed to
they
be.
had let you know that the study was complete.
They let us know that they were working on a study, they were looking to complete it and looking to resolve the core issue, which is the sound.
And they were prepared to come to the meeting on Tuesday until I found out there was an attorney coming
Well,
with the sound study, with
that was
their,
her statement to me.
with
there
their
were other
engineer,
reasons why.
with their engineers. They
That
would,
was the stated reason to me.
So,
Right hand don't know what the left
I
hand's
just want
doing.
this resolution to go up for a vote on Tuesday, that's all. And if they come through and they do the noise tests and they come forth with a plan and they come forth with mitigation measures, then we don't go anywhere with the Supreme Court action, but at least we have this to compel them to come to the table.
Well, it sounds like it's definitely a pretty upsetting problem.
Yeah.
And definitely we need to address it. I do think, you know, for saving money for the taxpayers, we could wait a week.
Well, I want this to go up on Tuesday night.
They might be able to save money as to not retaining, you're talking about retaining a legal
Who wrote-
firm.
who wrote
This isn't
No,
gonna
no,
cost
no,
us
we're
any
gonna,
money.
we're gonna handle it, the plan, I think, is that Eric would handle the
Yeah.
Supreme Court proceeding and the action, if need be. Since sound, noise is the core question, we feel strongly that having a expert ultimately
Obviously, it's been
retained
a long
would
time
be
and
something that
people
would
are
be
frustrated,
beneficial.
but
Do you-
1
do
week
you-
won't
I don't
make a
wanna
huge
really
difference.
get into too much
Do
trial
you
strategy
feel this
here.
will hinder them coming to the table?
I don't know.
No, it's not going to. I want this resolution voted on Tuesday. Laura, if you don't wanna vote for it, you don't have to. Catherine, if you don't wanna vote for it, Tim, Jim, you don't wanna vote for it, you don't have to. I wanna tell the residents of Glenwood that I do care that they're dealing with this for as long as they are, and I'm ready to proceed with the Supreme Court action if they don't do the right thing. And this does not say that the day after we adopt the resolution, a Supreme Court action is gonna start. It's saying you better come to the table.
I think if, to 5 years, I think 1 week, 7 days out of after 5 years of
I know what you think.
complaints, I think is,
I want the resolution voted on.
I
Okay.
support that. I support voting on a resolution. Resolution's not gonna cost us anything. If their word is true and they come to the table in a week, this is a moot point.
Right.
But I think this shows them that we're serious, we're not taking this anymore.
I'm not, yeah, I
Let's
was
get to
gonna say, I'm
the
not
table
opposed
and
to
let's
this
work it
resolution.
out.
The only thing I'm a little dismayed about is it's quite obviously, that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
I think the right hand knows
It
very
might
well what
be-
the left hand's doing.
It might be after the fact, after the horse, I don't know.
Jody said
I'm
it.
not opposed to it.
Jody was in on the meeting.
That Stop and Shop didn't show up for whatever reason, and I was told
Well,
it was a
believe me,
different
if-
reason.
If somebody's calling me in their office and they were there with their attorney, I'm not going in unless I
That's
get
not
my
the reason
attorney.
why, Jim,
Well, that's,
but
so
anyway.
is that you.
Well,
I'm just
From
saying how I
inside
feel.
sources that I happen to know, told me that's not the reason.
I mean, I'm for waiting 1 week and then certainly going after them aggressively.
Well, let's see what happens
Okay,
between
well,
now and Tuesday.
Clearly
I'm
need
okay,
to
I'm
protect
okay.
our residents.
I'm okay to put the resolution if you want in, if everybody's in agreement with it, we
Good.
will put it in
Well, let's see
the
what,
pack.
yeah, put it in and let's see what happens between now and
Right.
Tuesday.
Okay.
We might withdraw it
Yeah,
then.
yeah, we have the VHB study that they did recently
Right.
with their,
It
with
may
their
be a moot point by
recommendations. So
town
that's
board
back in,
meeting.
and I'll
Yep.
share that with the whole board, so you
Great.
have it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a first and second to go into executive session for personnel,
okay.
matters, surrounding a raise for an employee, matters surrounding discipline action for an employee, contractual discussion regarding the financial history of a particular corporation leading to the potential employment, and discussion regarding hiring a consultant.
Only if everybody's behavior gets a little better
So
than it
moved.
was at this
I
table,
wanna
because I'm getting
discipline
tired
an
of
employee
this.
right now.
Thank you, guys.
Really, with those